just a quick heads up, some of the topics that we will be discussing in this episode are quite graphic and quite grotesque at times. This is mainly about Chris Chan and the history of Chris Chan.
It's all about it.
Yeah, and it is a very disturbing story. I would not recommend Chromecasting this to the entire family.
Yeah, don't watch this with your family. Watch this with headphones if you have to. Avoid it if you're not, if you're a little bit squirmish.
There are some sensitive topics included.
Yep.
And also, we apologize if we say the wrong pronoun for Chris. We're not doing it intentionally. We mean no ill will. And thank you so much. Enjoy. Welcome to this episode of Trash Taste. I'm Connor, and I'm here with the boys as usual, Joey and Gaunt. And today we have an interesting guest, a rather unusual one, I might add, as well, Geno Samuels. Hi, Geno. How you doing?
I'm okay.
Just okay?
Just okay?
I'm very okay.
So, there's probably going to be a lot of people who don't know who you are or what your work is. Some people might be familiar with what you do. You do a YouTube series on the very notorious and infamous Chris Chan.
Yes, I do. It's a very extensive series.
Yeah.
That's
very
the way.
extensive.
That's the way. to explain
Extensive
it,
is an understatement from what I can tell.
So, obviously there's, if you don't know what Chris Chan is or the lore behind Chris Chan, it's a very strange tale of the internet, and one that I don't feel qualified to talk about.
I don't think any of us are qualified to talk about it.
How would you explain what you do to somebody who doesn't understand anything about Chris Chan or the internet, essentially?
Okay, well, I talk in depth about Chris Chan. And if you don't know, Chris Chan is a certain person who has received a lot of attention over the years from various online forums and online groups for his and then later her unusual actions. And
that is an understatement.
Unusual actions.
That's a very brief introduction, a very simplified introduction there.
Right.
Yeah, also has been bullied a lot.
Yeah.
I guess you could say he's kind of like the forerunner of several online groups, several online, I don't know what.
It's so difficult to describe what he's all about, right?
You kind of have to go chronologically year by year to really get the full story. Honestly.
Yeah. So this is go on.
Yeah, because I had not heard of Chris Chan until I think a few months ago, where Connor introduced me to one of your videos, and I was because he couldn't believe that I hadn't heard of Chris Chan as someone who had been on the internet. He was just like, "What? How have you never heard of Chris Chan?"
Gaunt's been doing YouTube since which year now?
2007.
So basically the start of YouTube. I found it. How dare you be on this? How dare you be on this website and not know anything about Chris Chan?
See, because I knew of things associated with Chris. Which we'll obviously get into later in the video. But when I heard the name Chris Chan, obviously, knowing because I'm Japanese, right? So when I immediately think something Chan, I think it's just like a character or something like that. And then when I realized that Chris Chan was an actual person, I was like, oh, okay. Now this completely changes things.
So the reason why this episode came about and why Geno is here today is that I've been watching Geno's series. Now Geno does. A kind of a mountain task of documenting everything. And I think what episode are we on? 59 right now?
Is
59,
that correct? Yeah.
So you have made 59 roughly around 30 to 50 minute videos.
How many hours of content have you made? Do you even know?
Of course, many people have calculated already. It's over 40 hours.
Made
40 hours.
So this is a 40-hour documentary. Michael Jordan is eating his heart out right now.
Yeah, right.
Last Dance, eat your heart out. 40 hours of content, and it is just this very fascinating look into a side of the internet, essentially.
It's a really interesting, just case study, isn't it? On just a person on the internet.
And I think it's just so. There's nothing like it on the internet. And to have just such material, the sheer scale of it is really daunting. And trying to convince someone to start watching, because the way I try to get people into Chris Chan and this whole thing is not because I don't particularly care about what happens, but it is almost like a TV show at this point, which we can also get about later, whether that's ethical or not and whatnot. But I get my friends into the documentary. I'm like, please watch this. It's insane.
Like when you like introduced us to Geno's documentary
Yeah.
at your place that one time, and I saw that there was like 45 episodes
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
I think I was like, oh, is this what it feels like to like try and get someone into One Piece?
No, I was about to say the exact same thing. 'Cause this is like I saw the episode. It was really interesting, and I looked at
Yeah.
the rest of the episodes and just the sheer length. I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's like I
just
know,
daunting to
I
me.
know, like because like just from watching episode 1, I was like, oh, this is so interesting. I want to watch more. But just like the sheer amount just made me kind of fall back a little bit. It's
yeah,
like, oh my god.
I think I started watching your series around episode 9 or 10, and that's when I started watching basically whenever you uploaded them. And it's been one of those things where the longer it gets, the harder it is to convince people to start because it gets so daunting. I think what happened the evening I showed these guys the series is that we'd been drinking a bit, and we were like, "What should we watch?" And I was like, "I know the exact thing to watch at like midnight. Let me put it on."
Yeah, we finished watching all the Super Monkey Ball speed runs, and we were like, what else? What else can top that? And Chris and Connor was like, "Watch this."
Yeah, so we started watching it. I don't even know how to begin talking about this topic because it is so difficult to explain if the viewers don't know anything, and I imagine the viewers don't know much.
Right.
How would you describe Chris to someone who has no idea who Chris is?
Okay, Chris Chan is an autistic individual who through the process of bad parenting and their own afflictions caused themselves to both become a subject of bullying online, and also in turn they did not learn to avoid the trolls on the internet, and by addressing them all the time only brought them into a bigger mess.
It
over
is just
time.
a case study of what not to do on the internet.
Right.
Yeah.
In almost every single aspect.
It seems like, for me, from an outsider, because I think out of the three of us, I know the least about this topic. And it just seems, from what I can garner, it's kind of like the perfect storm of someone who is very susceptible to what people say about them on the internet and being trolled, and just kind of the worst trolls possible, egging them on.
Yeah.
And you just see the result from that.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, it says a lot when you can make 40 hours of content and you're not even up to date yet, are you, with the full story?
Not even close.
Yeah, I think there was obviously, people might know a lot about the recent news that happened.
Yes.
As Chris Chan or Christine, how do I even say this? This video
I'm like afraid to like say it out
Yeah.
loud. You know?
had, a lot of people like their mother. Unfortunately, Chris, I'm trying my best to say this without getting demonetized.
A lot of people like their mother, but I think Chris
did
really
took it to,
likes her mother.
Took it to another level.
Yeah.
We joke, but the reason why it was covered in like a lot of mainstream outlets because it was so
It's trending on
despicable.
Twitter as
It's
well.
like
Yeah.
Christine had sexual intercourse with their mother, who I believe has dementia. Is that correct?
Possibly.
Possibly. Okay, I don't know, but when you see
But
clips,
it's very old, right?
very clips, it's very
At least
concerning.
80, or I think around 80 now.
Yeah.
So.
And it's obviously incest is illegal, and the fact that it is just insane.
Yeah.
It is, and quite frankly, it feels like the worst timeline to be on. It felt like we can get into it later about what happened after, but how do you when you start to introduce the topic of Christine, how do you talk about it to people who have like no idea, who want to know about it, in a sense that, okay, you've given the basics of who Chris was back then and how it all started, but how do you describe the documentary that you make?
It's a deep dive into a certain individual that I guess for the most part Chris was mostly known for the videos on YouTube for a very long time, but then I started exploring their wiki, which is their own dedicated wiki based on like everything they do.
Yeah.
And I found so much amazing information and interactions and content which gets ignored a lot on YouTube. So I decided to compile as much as I could, as much interesting stuff as I could, into video form to make it more digestible on YouTube. And
so you just read all this stuff and you're like, this is so interesting, I want to repackage it in a way that is more accessible.
right, yeah.
Wow.
So how did you get involved in this initially? Like,
Initially, I wanted a video series like mine to exist, but no one had it around, so I decided to make it myself.
yourself.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
fair enough.
And go.
No, because like I guess what What motivated you to get into this kind of? Because it seems like there's an entire culture around Chris Chan right now. I totally don't.
Christorians.
Is that what they're called? Christorians. What's a Christorian?
Christorian is a person who knows pretty much everything about
Who is
Chris.
a part of Christory.
There's
a person who's part of Christory.
I just couldn't imagine someone unironically being like, I am a Christorian. Yes.
Professional
That's what I do.
Christorian.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, are you technically one? Do you refer to yourself as one, or does it make you
Do you
cringe at the thought
identify
of it?
as a Christorian?
People refer to me as the go-to Christorian at the moment. Yeah.
You sound utter contempt when you say that.
You're the face of all Christorians right now.
It's a burden I must bear.
You know those memes where it's like the people holding up like the world, the army, and it's they're living like peacefully at the top. It's like Geno Samuel holding up the fabric.
Holding up the world.
I feel like it has some aspects because you do seem almost, you hate many aspects of it. Is that fair to say?
I wish there was something more to my identity rather than being a Christorian.
Right,
But
of
yeah.
course,
But yeah, of course, I can't blame them because it is like the thing that I'm most known for at the moment, at least.
Yeah.
It is just so, I think when a lot of people see that you've made 40 hours or nearly 60 episodes on something, they do think, what drives a man to do such a thing, to make 60 episodes? And I think if I remember correctly, when you've been doing this, your channel got deleted at some point, right?
Yeah.
So your channel is called Geno Samuel 2.1, plug, link in the description. So I think because it got deleted during the first one, is that correct?
Yes, Geno Samuel 2 was terminated for bullying and harassment.
Right.
And that was for the Chris Chan episodes?
That was the Christian episodes. I was up to part 12 at that point. Yeah.
I think I remember this happening, and I thought you were going to quit right at that point, at some point, no?
Yeah, I did quit. I actually made part 13 and then released it on a different video hosting platform. But then after that, I decided, you know what, I'm just not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what I want to know is, did you know what you were getting yourself into when you started this project?
Well, at around part 5, I got already 10,000 subs on YouTube. So for that, I made a Q&A video,
Right.
answered some questions. And people asked, how long do you think it's going to be? I said, I'm probably going to get up to date around part 15. So I really had no idea what I was getting into.
Well, yeah, because it's just insane that, because again, I've seen a couple of your episodes, right? And it's just insane because it's like one episode isn't just talking about like one core thing. It's like it's just a compilation of all the things that just happen in chronological order. So
Exactly, yeah.
like on average, like how long does it take to make one Chris Chan episode?
From the start of writing to the publication, maybe 3 to 4 weeks.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
I mean, yeah, like I can't think of the amount of research that has to go into it, right? Because like,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is your research process for this? 'Cause I wouldn't even know how or where to
Yeah,
start.
do you talk to a lot of people in the community? Do you ask them, hey, what happened if you're not sure? Or like, what is the whole process? Right?
Very rarely I do talk with someone, but mostly I go through the Quickie and then the Kiwi Farms.
What's Kiwi Farms?
Kiwi Farms is a certain website, which is focusing on discussions around people online who do laughable things and are affectionately or unaffectionately referred to as lol cows.
Yeah, because there's a whole website called lolcow as well, right? Which is separate.
As a different thing.
Yeah, so a different website, but that is like the type of person, generally someone who just makes a lot of drama, does a lot of very questionable things.
Yeah, my understanding of Kiwi Farms and LolCow was always just like a place where people go to like talk drama about certain people and like.
Yeah, where I feel like 4chan is just
yeah.
unfiltered garbage that is sometimes funny but also extremely questionable. I feel like LolCow, Kiwi Farm, very centered on the creators online and very much about people who are doing stuff online, whereas 4chan is just anything.
Yeah, anything goes. Yeah. But was it? Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Kiwi Farms started like for Chris, like to document Chris?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was originally called Quickie Forums. And
Hey, did you not know that?
I did not know.
Oh,
that.
okay.
Well, there you go. So yeah,
We're gonna learn a lot today, ladies and gentlemen.
So yeah, it was originally called Quickie Forums, and the reason it developed into Kiwi Forums was because it was during a certain dry spell of content from Chris Chan when they were not being active online for like a year or so. People started making subforums about other people who are similar to Chris,
Right.
and then after a while they decided to abandon the Quickie Forums and then get a new domain and call themselves Kiwi Farms, which is apparently a result. It's actually based on a mispronunciation that some other lolcows said about the Quickie Farms. They pronounced it as Kiwi
Kiwi.
Farms.
Oh,
So that's how it started.
right.
And so Quick is that just Christian Weston Chandler?
Christian Weston Chandler, later.
Which is the
Yeah.
name.
CWC.
Right.
CWC.
And that is essentially the universe, or like what is that? What Christine built? Is that? Correct me on the law. There's so much information. It's
Yeah.
very hard to keep track.
Yes, Chris started building their own world, I guess, during their teenage years. In late 90s, they developed this concept of Quickville, which is the city of Quick, of Chris Chan.
So there is
I'm
like
already
this.
lost.
There's just like this whole.
It's a fantastical world.
So
It's a fantastic
you know, like,
world, exactly.
do you know what Sonichu is?
No.
Do you want to explain what Sonichu is? Well, I mean, it's very
I mean, yeah. Okay, so I think Quickville was actually before Sonichu, so it was just like
right.
As a
slotted
result,
into there.
yeah.
But yeah, Sonichu came about as a high school project. Chris was doing a design class where he had to design his own CD, and he wanted to put on Sonic and Pikachu. I can't remember, was it Sonic or Pikachu? And the teacher said he couldn't put in any copyrighted characters.
Right.
So he decided to go around that issue, combine
Okay.
Sonic and
Sonichu.
Pikachu into Sonichu.
And,
So-
and that became like a very iconic meme online.
Yeah, so
Right.
I found out about the whole Chris thing because I knew what Sonichu was. Because you know, being on all sorts of internet forums back in the day, like you would just see Sonichu like out of context or used in.
Yeah, I remember I saw it a lot and had
Yeah.
no one. I just thought it was a ripoff.
Yeah, right. So I thought it was just like one of those like funny memes that someone created, right? And then I realized, oh, Sonichu is linked with this person called Chris Chan. And then that's how I found out about the whole world of Chris. And then I just went deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole, essentially.
So, when you watch your documentary, it starts out, I mean, quite positive, I'd say. Well, not positive, but
Hopeful?
yeah, I'd say hopeful. You get introduced to Chris at the time, and it kind of becomes this like you get to see Chris on TV when very young, right?
Yeah.
When they won a competition, and you're like, oh, okay, it's going pretty well. And then you start to get into some very personal details about Chris, which I always found very concerning. How they were like, how did you get this information?
Yeah.
Because when you get introduced to Chris, you learn about Chris. You learn that Chris is autistic. That Chris is very obsessed with games and stuff. And then somehow we get a very detailed explanation of Chris's school life, how they had at the time multiple gal pals, as Chris always refers to them as, who then we are found out later Chris's parents were asked the gal pals to be friends with Chris,
Yeah,
so that
and
Chris
there
had
was-
friends.
There was just like so much personal, intimate detail that I
Yeah.
don't even think I have about my own life.
Yeah, right.
You know?
When there was like a medical record or something, or a psychiatric
it's a
record.
psychiatric evaluation, right? I think
How
it's on
was
the first
that?
episode.
You showed this in your episode of
Right.
Chris, and I just sat there in awe, being like, I don't even know where mine is.
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
have one,
Yeah.
I don't.
Like this
where
is
would I get
information that should be like public.
this? Was this all self-published by Chris?
Some of it was the documents, the school papers, the medical records were actually, I guess, illegally taken from their property.
Oh,
At-
wow.
At
Really?
later points, yeah.
Damn.
It was at a point much later in their life, at around 2014. Actually, there was a troll who got into their dumpster
Oh
and,
no.
and took out all the papers.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Fuck,
So people have been going to Chris's house and just dumpster diving constantly, just trying to.
That
see what
happened at least once. I don't think many people did that. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Maybe
isn't
just
it?
one time, yeah. But people do go there and take updated pictures of the house, for example, and their
Right.
lawn. Yeah.
Yeah, so as someone who doesn't know much about Chris Chan as a whole topic, so like what are some of the most notable things they've done or that we can mention, I could say, that have like garnered them such a notoriety online?
I mean, at this point, is there anything that they haven't mentioned?
Because for me, I'm just like, okay, so you talk about Chris Chan being like one of the most documented people probably in history at this point, and just seeing the first part of your documentary, I'm just like, yeah, I can see that. You know?
Yeah.
Like I don't think someone has had such intimate detail be leaked or
Yeah.
put out into a public space before. But like, what are some of how did they gain notoriety in the first place? That's
Yeah.
what I'm so curious about.
All started in 2007 when photos of Chris were posted on 4chan, I think, and then maybe somethingawful.com.
Yeah, I remember
Back
that
then.
forum website.
Yeah, so people connected the dots and showed off the pictures as this is the person who created the Sonichu comics,
Right.
and look at him. It's kind of like a freak gawking.
Right.
Right,
in a
which
way,
is
yeah.
something awful. They used to just like post anything that was awful, quote unquote, what they thought,
Yeah.
and they would
Right,
just
right,
mock
right.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was the thing.
Yeah, so that's how that started. And Chris noticed this and started making videos addressing rumors and correcting the record.
Yeah, I
Right.
believe one of the most worrying things, and is where you could definitely tell this was going to take a turn for the worst in the documentary that you made, is that at some point, Chris has this brilliant idea of just releasing everything.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
just handwriting an absurd amount of personal information, probably penis length included at some point in there, you know.
So yeah, like the way that she fights back is to basically dox herself.
Yeah,
In
which
other
is a really
words.
strange strategy.
Yes. This was in response to the Encyclopedia Dramatica page, which was made about Chris Chan
Right.
at that time. Yeah. And apparently, according to Chris, they were fed up because they got a lot of details wrong. So I wanted to correct that and add context to the information, which
Which just sounds like a disaster.
Yeah.
right?
Basically
Wow.
adding a footnote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all the information.
It's just like you see like a fire and you're just like, let's just pour oil on this.
no, that's not how you burn a fire. Here, let me help you. Jesus.
yeah, and part he called this task information overload, which
I love that. I love that Chris kept calling it that. It's like, I don't think that's how it works on the internet. Maybe in person, if you stream that, I would be like, wait, what?
which I imagine he was kind of like thinking that the Encyclopedia Dramatica page would be like a malfunctioning robot. If you feed it too much information, his head's gonna explode.
Yeah,
or something
right.
Like that. He thought that maybe.
It's like feeding a logic bomb to like an AI or
Right.
something, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's like a
it's-
plot to like a movie or something.
And Encyclopedia Dramatica, again, is another drama website, right?
Right.
Where it's just,
Yeah.
encyclopedia of people who have done, well, drama things. And it's literally just documented. There's a lot of
Yeah, there's
people on there.
numerous websites that are horrible like that.
Oh, yeah. It's unfortunate that some people go on there and then correct the record about them.
Yeah.
I still don't think that's an act that's been done. I don't think
that's
most
definitely unprecidented. for
most
sure,
people on
yeah.
there tend to not go on there and say,
Yeah.
"Hey guys, no, I didn't actually do that.
Yeah,
I did this instead."
Yeah,
And I think so. That's like the. Correct me if I'm wrong. That is one of the biggest catalysts, right,
That's
to
when-
what
yeah.
kick-started the fascination that people have with Chris.
Yeah, and it basically fed the trolls because they received so much information, so much personal information about Chris. And this included one particular drawing of Chris and their friend, at the time their female friend, being satisfied in a certain way.
Yikes.
And yeah, that got a lot of attention too, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, I think later on, Chris also mentioned, or Christine at that time mentioned that they thought that it was okay to draw sexual pictures of someone because they weren't actually doing the sexual thing to them or something.
Yeah. Also, Chris in a video, or no, Chris in a personal email said that they made that drawing in order to release their certain urges,
Oh my god.
instead of acting it out in person.
Wait, personal email to who?
Personal email to the female friend.
Oh yeah, justification. I do remember this. This was in a previous episode, right?
Yeah.
So they were like, "Oh, I'm not going to do anything to you. That's
Right.
why I'm drawing stuff, so that I don't do anything to you." Which must be an extremely concerning email to
Is
receive.
this person just like the human yikes machine? Like what?
Well, that's the problem, is that every time when you watch this documentary or when you're reading about Chris, which is just worrying in itself, every time you want to give Chris a chance and root for Chris,
Yeah.
something happens
Yeah.
where you're like, fuck.
Yeah, every time she's that close to getting the W, she does something.
Especially
that gives her
earlier
the
on.
L.
I feel like in the start of the
Right.
in the history, you very much are rooting for Chris to just stop. Just please, just stop.
Just get
Please.
off the internet, dude.
Raising money for charity or something.
Yeah.
You know. And I think there was one turning point for me where I was like, for fuck's sake, when I was watching this, and I think it was. I don't think they do this anymore, but Chris at the time would just say racist things and was quite homophobic very often.
Yep.
And it was just to the point where I was like, and I wonder how much of that was due to the environment that they were raised in. Right?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it raised very difficult questions where it was like, is this your fault or is this your environment's fault that you were raised and you haven't been educated better on
Like,
this
is this
situation?
how you actually are, or were you like orchestrated by people?
Well, it's hard to say, you know, because I feel that they're a very impressionable person, and I felt like you can definitely tell whatever that was told to them as a child was stuck with them quite a lot.
Right.
So I it's a very conflicting thing, especially because Chris does have autism, quite severe autism.
Yeah.
You almost want to justify certain things, but then every single time you want to justify, well, I'm sure it's, you know, something else happens.
Yeah.
Where you're like, for fuck's sake, I am trying my best to want you to do
I'm trying
good.
to be on your side.
I am trying my best here.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm just like, you know, like that domino meme.
Yeah. It is
like-
literally that. It is literally the massive domino.
Like Chris Chan draws Sonic Shoe, and then it ends with sleeping with his mother. Like, I'm just like, what happened in between? How did we get to this point? Like,
Because you know, it's I don't even know where to begin about you know, because I do want the viewers to kind of understand the certain milestones, if you will, kind of run through it just
The
so
notable
that,
points.
just so that people can kind of who don't know anything about it can understand, you know, roughly the timeline. So in 2007, this all started, correct?
Right.
And I don't know when the trolling saga started, but it felt like it lasted a millennia. So
what's the trolling saga?
I feel like there was like 30 episodes where it was just trolling.
I mean, yeah.
There was
There's 30 episodes, but it was like in the span of 2 years.
Yeah,
chronologically.
it's the problem is that there is. I feel like the recent history of Christine has been very not well.
I think you meant to say Christery.
The Christery has not
Correct
been.
terminology.
There's not as much essentially.
Right.
I feel like there was a lot more recordings of trolling and stuff, and,
Yeah.
and just the amount of it.
There's a lot still, but it's mostly confined to long Twitter rants and like threads on Twitter, and not that many videos, which I guess is not as entertaining to most people.
So what kind of trolling are we talking about here?
Oh, there's some egregious stuff. Do you want to?
Oh, sure. Things really started to kick off in around 2008, I guess, when trolls decided to pretend to be females online interested in Chris.
The catfish.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Of course, and that happened many times actually. Chris kept falling for it every time, which was unfortunate.
Every single time.
Every single time. Yeah.
It's like you'd think, like even you know, it's like how many times
They won't
does this
expect a
have
10th catfish.
right? It's like how many catfishes before you're like, I've seen this one before. This looks awfully familiar. You know, one thing as well that is really concerning about you know, Chris throughout this whole documentary, especially in the earlier years, is just how much Chris wants to have sex.
Yeah, I like that
Yes.
because I think that's like the only way that you could fall for catfish that many times, right? It's that like
It's
he just
very
he
uncomfortable.
just wants a girl.
Yeah, how did he refer to girls at that point? Because I remember there was
boyfriend free girl.
Boyfriend
free girl. We need like an entire encyclopedia. Of just,
This is like
Christery
this podcast
terminology.
will not do it justice. Hopefully, what we can do is give you a basic introduction and a quick rundown of the important events,
Yeah.
and that if you really enjoy or you are extremely intrigued by what you hear, you can go and watch Geno's videos about
Yeah,
it.
please.
But we'll talk about it. And yeah, boyfriend free girl is
Yeah.
one of my favorite phrases of all time.
By the way, that's officially called a quickism,
Oh, okay.
Quickism.
These are all words that are
used by Chris. Yeah,
Right,
invented
right.
by Chris. Kind of. Yeah.
quick. It's like it sounds like a story, like a made up story.
You know, the thing that's very concerning about Chris throughout the whole thing, especially earlier on, is the way that he talks about sex is very much almost like watching a caveman speak about sex.
Right.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I want sex. It's just like there's no emotion.
No intimacy.
Yeah,
or
You know,
anything,
there's
yeah.
no mention of wanting to be close with someone. It's just I just want to have sex. It's the
It's
vibe
not so
that
much
you
like
get.
I want to make love. It's more like I just want to procreate. Kind
Yeah.
of like vibe, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really strange. And I think that also starts, like you said, it starts the trolling saga, which has some really disgusting points.
Right,
Which I mean, so they start trolling with the catfishing, and then
Yeah.
then it goes.
We're not at the discussing point yet.
Oh no!
What?
It depends on what it depends what flavor of, because you know I feel like there's a little bit for everyone in terms of disgusting.
What is this, an IGN review?
I,
Just a little something for everyone. Yeah.
whichever thing disgusts you the most, at some point Chris has been involved with it.
Yeah.
Like whichever
Probably,
thing, whichever thing disgusts you, whether it be. I think one thing that I think was the first thing that happened that really caught me off guard, and I knew that this documentary was not going in good places. I can't remember if this was the first or what. There is many of the trolls, correct me if I'm wrong here, they often, when they were pretending to be boyfriend and girlfriend, they would like convince Chris that they were like almost dating.
Right.
Is that right?
Right.
And then they would ask Chris for videos of him doing certain things at the time.
Videos and pictures, yes. Close-up pictures of certain body parts, yes.
Yeah. And I just remember I was taking a bath one time watching this documentary. I was just like cleaning, just chilling, because, you have a nice bath in Japan. I was chilling. And I just remember it was like, and then Chris bought the cake and then filmed himself sitting on it. And I was like, what? What? So.
And then you proceed to scrub harder.
And I was like,
I'm not clean enough. I'm not clean enough.
So why did this all happen?
I think it's just a way to see, would Chris actually do this? just to challenge Chris in a way as well.
Right.
And I guess this also comes as a consequence to the state of the internet at that time, where you could be anonymous a lot more easily.
Yeah, it was very open.
Yeah.
Kind of just sounds like they were limit testing.
Well, it was like that year was like the Wild West as well, where everyone, it kind of became normal enough.
2008,
Yeah, mid-2000s internet was terrifying.
Yeah, that was.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it was
remember
crazy
mid 2000s internet, man.
Yeah.
It was literally like the lawless place.
Yeah,
right? Like
because
you could do
I think
anything.
at the time I was mostly on Newgrounds at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
place was truly like, if it was the Wild West, there would be duels happening left and right.
Yeah.
There's people
Yeah.
getting shot down.
Yeah.
And so this was for 2 years, mainly, the main...
Mostly 2 years. Yeah.
And was this because Chris was just extremely active in responding, or was this because there was just a lot more of it, like a lot more trolls than there is now? What was the reason why there was just so much in those 2 years, do you think?
Well, it helps that Chris provided many entertaining videos.
Yeah.
So that kind of created content for them to laugh at. There was this certain group, a very close-knit group called the Private Villa of Corrupted Citizens, which...
Like, I don't even know if you're making it up.
It's almost tragic with
I
like
feel
the
like I'm
lack...
being trolled right now.
It's sad that a lot of the trolls sometimes just seem as pathetic as Chris sometimes.
Yeah.
And watching this, you're like, I don't know who's more pathetic. The guy trying to get Chris rubbing a cake in his ass video, or Chris. I can't decide
That's
myself.
how you feel when I'm like talking about fate. Just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So what?
Yeah, this
what
is
did you just
as
say?
difficult as fate to get into. I think this is the
Chris Law is more
No,
complex than
yeah. That's I think Chris Law is in its own world. At this
Yeah,
point.
definitely.
Evening weebs, Baby Man here, and today's episode is sponsored by Honey. You know how these podcast ads go, we read the spiel, blah blah blah, we give you a promo code at the end, but this one's different, because this is an ad for Honey. And a Honey ad doesn't just give you one promo code, a Honey ad gives you straight up millions of free promo codes. I'm guessing you shop online, and when you go to your favorite shops, Honey will just automatically fill in the promo codes when you're at the checkout. But it won't just dump in one promo code, no. It'll dump every single promo code it can find, and then test them all in second to see if one can give you a discount and the best discount it can find. Plus, Honey knows where to look for promo codes that is hard to find. If you didn't know, pizza is very expensive in Japan, and I often use Honey to get discounts on pizza. I mean, recently I just saved $10 on pizza to, I guess, make it a normally priced pizza anywhere else in the world. So, get all the promo codes you can at joinhoney.com/trashtaste. That's joinhoney.com/trashtaste. Thank you, Honey, for sponsoring this episode. Back to the video.
So this trolling group, the PVCC, which is actually named after a thing in Sonichu, the comic series. So Chris made this name up. It wasn't the trolls. The PVCC was also the name of their community college, well, the Piedmont, Virginia Community College, renamed as the Private Villa of Corrupted Citizens, because to Chris, that college symbolized a very dark time in their history, because the dean of the school prevented Chris from posting an attraction sign on the wall asking or looking for a girlfriend.
Chris would often post signs across the school and then also around their area, just advertising that they wanted a boyfriend-free girl. Right?
Yes.
Wow.
It's very strange because I think the lack of awareness is just always the Achilles heel when it came to Chris.
Yeah.
And I believe, for example, there was a period where Chris got kicked out of the mall
At least once, yeah.
for putting up signs.
Well, it wasn't signs. It was loitering. I
Loitering?
believe. Loitering with like
waiting for a boyfriend-free girl.
right. Yeah. Like
Chris
had
would
like,
approach people right at the mall.
Yes, they would as well, and also maybe throw a rock with the red string attached, and try to like lure a girl in.
You're making this up.
It's called the red string of fate.
Oh, right. That's popular in Japanese culture?
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
And like anime and stuff.
Literally,
Yeah.
like your name.
Yeah,
you know
your
that?
name has
Yeah,
it like
yeah,
on the pinky,
The
right?
red
Yeah.
strings of fate,
But
right?
instead of a pinky, it's just a rock. And they just throw at people.
So Chris was literally fishing for girls.
That was at least one attempt at that, yeah.
Okay.
And then, yeah, Chris was actually very infamously dogpiled on by security guards and thrown in jail, I guess, for a little bit, but then released and then permanently or like temporarily banned from the mall,
Right.
the local mall. So yeah, that was an issue for Chris because that prevented Chris from going to the go-to hotspot for boyfriend-free girls for a time.
I can't ever take it seriously when you say that. And
Because
so,
what I find fascinating, right, is that from an outsider looking in, you want to feel sympathetic towards this person
Right.
because they are getting the worst of online trolls,
Yeah.
right? But at some point, you just hear a story about something that they do, and you're just like, what is wrong with you? Like,
it very much pushes
Yeah.
the limit of, how much accountability can
Yeah.
you put on someone.
Yes.
Especially when Chris does have like quite severe autism.
Yeah,
It's
exactly,
very
right.
difficult to feel like, man, if this was a normal person, this would be totally your fault. But also, how much can you, like I said earlier, like there's so much factors of like you can clearly tell the upbringing
yeah.
was questionable. Maybe I don't know how good the parenting was. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
a parent; I can't judge.
Right.
Yeah.
But you have to have learned some of these things from somewhere, right?
Yeah. I mean, what for you was like the sympathy line that like Chris like went over the line and you're just like, nope, there's no way I can root for you anymore. If there was.
Were
one.
you
if there
ever
was
at the
one?
sympathy line?
I mean, I'm not very sympathetic. No,
Yeah.
but
Right.
especially not after the recent events.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
recently,
yeah, of course,
recently
of course.
now it's like there's no sympathy there.
There's like it's-
all sympathy's gone.
the sympathy line is just like in like the dust at this point.
But like I said, I remember I was watching it, and there was parts where like I genuinely felt like sympathetic towards Chris,
Yeah.
and I wanted to see Chris do better.
Yeah.
And then there was just a rant about why Chris hated gay people at some point, and I was like, for fuck's sake, like.
Yeah.
But was that orchestrated by the trolls?
No. That was, I believe, a lot of the issues of upbringing with Chris is the parents who
Right.
were very old when Chris was conceived. The father was 54, the mother was 40, so they were already old-timey kind of people who didn't really understand what autism was when
Yeah.
Right.
when Chris was diagnosed with it, and they were kind of afraid of letting Chris go to a special school for autism or to treat it in any way, and just they kind of pretended that it didn't exist and kind of tried to
Right.
Yeah.
I would be absolutely crushed if I found out my parents asked someone to be friends with me. That would.
Yeah,
I
right?
wonder if that did affect Chris at all. If you.
I don't know. Did Chris even view it that way?
Eventually, they found out,
Yeah.
but
Didn't care.
at the time, they were very happy. It was the happiest time of their life, as they stated many times during their high
Right.
school.
Yeah, it's almost. It's
what's the backstory behind this?
so Chris had a lot of gal pals. Is that correct?
Yes.
In
who
school.
were girls, but not girlfriends. Just friends who are girls.
Platonic
But
relationship.
he did want
Were
to
they
have some of them
were
to
they
be girlfriends.
boyfriend-free girls, or, as you would call it?
And you would see a lot of the pictures of like Chris's earlier birthday parties would be with these gal pals.
Right.
And it later found out that Chris's dad had asked, I believe, maybe their parents or them to be
Yeah.
friends with Chris.
Actually, it was kind of an amazing situation where this was a later trolling attempt. I think at around 2015 or so. Chris themselves tried to organize a high school reunion, so then they would finally meet up with their gal pals one more time. But during this time, trolls decided to pretend to be gal pals, and stated in their emails that their parents only asked them to be friends with them in exchange for like money or good grades or whatever. And then Chris asked their mother, "Is this true?" And then she answered yes. They just coincidentally got it right.
Wow.
Jeez. But like, I'm thinking like, because even up until the whole trolling saga point, that I think a lot of these trolls knew already so much information about Chris's
boring
backstory and
amount.
everything. Right?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, did they get it right coincidentally, or maybe there was like some hunch being like, well,
guess-
you know,
It's also really sad watching. Oh, sorry, go on. I interrupted you. You had a question.
Oh no, I was just saying, like, I wonder if it was actually a coincidence or not, or maybe they had a hunch of some kind to be like, maybe the parents did actually do this, and let's just like run with the
I
story.
guess it was a hint. Yeah, it means how likely is it for these gal pals to be so close with Chris? Honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
Reality is sometimes harsh, unfortunately.
I think one of the things that
Did you just quote Thanos?
reality is harsh.
Reality is often harsh.
Be whatever I want it to be.
I wasn't even aware because I've never even seen the fucking movie.
You've seen the memes. You've seen the
I've
memes.
seen the memes. I don't remember them.
You know subconsciously.
That meme was living rent free in my head somewhere.
There was the one thing that I felt very sad about watching this documentary is Chris's clear nostalgia and almost want to be back in high school.
Yeah.
And the fact that Chris never grows out of it.
Yeah.
That's what really just felt very sad watching, because this has been going on. We have videos of since Chris was God knows how young and it going up and just never changes and always wants to be back in high school where things were simple and had gal pals.
Was their high school life good? Probably compared to now, but
So they claim.
Right.
Lakeland was great because they had gal pals, and yeah, that's it really.
Also, I believe they used to frequent the local game store an awful lot as a child. Is that correct? Or as a
That
teenager?
one I'm not too sure about.
Right.
Personally, yeah.
I feel like people have a lot more patience when you're a child, right? And I felt that Chris had a lot of luxuries, probably the fact that people would probably, they wouldn't question a lot of things, and they would also be very patient with some things. I'd imagine that people aren't really when you're an adult. People get kind of scared. Like there was a whole arc, if you will, with Chris in the game store,
Yes.
where Chris ended up. Yeah, an arc.
There's arcs in the story.
There's multiple arcs. So Chris how did this start with Chris in the game store? Because you're trying to explain this rough arc to Gant.
Chris went to a local game store where they played games and bought games.
Pokemon trading card
Pokemon trading cards, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I could play, games on the TV as well on the Wii at that time, I believe. And that's where they met their female friend, which they later drew
Right.
in a certain way.
Through a rock.
Yeah.
Reeled her in.
So yeah, in this game place, Chris really liked this female friend and got way too touchy several times, way too many times, even though she addressed this in emails privately, but Chris continued to do so, and eventually that relationship fell out after the image was leaked by Chris themselves. So
It's like who leaked all this information? It's always Chris.
It's always Chris, yeah.
So yeah, and after that point, Chris still continued to go to the game store for a little bit longer before they started causing way too much trouble with the manager getting very annoyed by their constant hogging of the TV, of the games, possibly even shouting racial slurs at the African American children. So
Yikes.
Every single time you want to root for Chris, just so you hear something and you're like, for fuck's sake, fuck.
I get it if Chris tried to approach the girl, to be like, yeah, I just want to be in a nice relationship
Sexually
with you,
harassing.
not in a weird way kind of thing, and then they're just like, no, I'm going to do the worst thing possible to try and move this forward, move the relationship forward.
Had to be racist towards kids? Really? Really? Anyway.
It's like being a nuisance is one thing. Hogging the TV is one thing.
It's like
There's only one thing worse than a racist: a child.
Yeah, true. It's like a comic book villain at times. It's like a Darman video, right? Just like it's so textbook racist, or in some ways where it's like you can't make this up. No one would act like this.
Yeah.
And so anyway, carry on the game store.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were banned, and after about 9 months, I believe, Chris made a video on YouTube addressing the manager of the game store, thinking that if you put his name in the title of the video, he would just magically see it and see this video addressed to him.
Like the manager's real name in the title.
Honestly, yeah.
Because people just going onto YouTube and just typing out their full name, being like, who's made a video about me?
Yeah.
Maybe if it wasn't like his name in the title at all, it was like the stock DV SMQ005 or whatever. Chris started the video with, "This video is addressed to the manager of the game store, blah, blah, blah. And please let me back. I learned my lesson," like that.
I remember this. Yeah, I do remember this.
Right.
And the manager was like, "No."
Yeah. That, like about half a year, maybe after that, Chris was convinced by a trollsome gal pal or a girlfriend online to go back to the game store and try to get themselves unbanned.
Right.
They actually recorded the conversation privately on their person.
Of course.
Because Chris's girlfriend at the time, as far as they knew, thought it would be a very good idea, and like they would like be able to threaten the manager with like, oh, you said this, and I don't know,
Use as blackmail.
try to blackmail them,
Right.
right. And then the manager said no, and just kicked him out again. And I think threatened to call the police. And then on the way out, Chris called the manager a Jew, and.
You know what I mean? You see what I mean?
Jesus.
Okay, and then that happened, right? Yeah.
That happened. And then other things happened. Yes, about another year after that, Chris went back to the store with their mother, actually. Mm-hmm. And this was after their elderly father had died already.
Right.
So they went back to the store because they saw a new banner up on the store saying under new management or under a new owner, and they realized that the manager of the store now became the owner of the store and became angry again. They were kicked out, and on the way out, the manager of the store was run over by Chris's car twice. See, the thing was
not accidentally, right? Like,
well, the thing was, we're not really sure what was the order of the situation, but both Chris's mother and Chris themselves were driving the car, and each took a turn to run over the
This is pretty horrible. This sounds like a fucking
It's
Looney
fucked
Tunes
up.
skit.
It's so you can't make this up.
It actually sounds like a Looney Tunes skit at this point.
So I'm not sure who did it first. Like, did Chris accidentally do it and then
Swap.
and then-
Oh, your turn. Finish it. Finish the job, please, mother.
or maybe they thought that like the second time the other person driving would like cover for them, like
Right. You take the
you
blame.
weren't driving. It was me. So then let's run over him twice. But anyway, yeah, they were both
Was
charged
it-
with manslaughter. No, it wasn't
Manslaughter.
No, it wasn't manslaughter. It was like grievous bodily harm, or I don't know.
Was the sauna owner okay?
The owner was okay actually, and he actually wanted the charges to be dropped or at least lessened.
Damn.
oh,
Yeah.
what a nice manager. After
If someone
all
ran
the
me
shit
over.
they went through.
So we got racism, homophobia, hit and run. Like, is this person just speed running hate crimes now?
Yeah.
Like, what's,
Oh, there's more. There'll be more.
No, she's trying to like 100% hate crimes. Like getting the Xbox achievement, man.
It's like a bingo list of crimes. It is shocking how many you can accidentally commit when
Yeah.
you're not really
Is
aware.
Chris Chan the original gamer?
The completionist.
Oh God!
I mean, some people might say that Chris might be the first Let's Player in a way.
Yeah, because Chris did videos of
Chris
Little Big Planet.
Chris made a video on Little Big Planet back in 2002 or 3.
Wow.
And they were narrating their actions over it, which makes like
That's a Let's Play.
like one of the first Let's Plays ever. Yeah.
Holy shit.
And that review was actually published in the Nintendo Game Magazine. Or was it Nintendo Power? Was it?
Nintendo
Power.
Power.
Yeah, it was published
discontinued,
there.
Right?
wow.
Actually, Chris had 2 things published in Nintendo Power over the course of their life.
It was like an Animal Crossing video, if I remember correctly.
It was Animal Crossing. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Wow.
And they were talking about what they were doing. And one of the first things that Chris did during their narration in that video was saying that they were a high-functioning autistic virgin.
Oh yeah, I remember.
This is something that Chris often mentioned very often. It was,
Yeah.
I'm a high-functioning autistic virgin, which, when you watch it, it's like, what?
Yeah,
You're just not used to hearing
that's
that.
like 4 words I didn't think I would hear
Yeah.
next to each other.
Or someone self-proclaim.
Yeah, right.
Which is just, it's bizarre. And the whole, like I said, there's arcs, right? There's and the game store is over like 10 years. No, it's quite a long time, if I remember correctly.
About 5 years, yeah.
It's quite a long
The
time.
game store arc.
And also watching these this documentary, it's kind of, because it's all in chronological order, it's concerning how often stuff gets revisited and Chris tries again.
So what other arcs are there?
Well, like I said, the trolling one feels like it lasts forever.
Yeah.
The initial, I mean, Chris is always being trolled with.
Did it
I
ever
find.
stop though?
It didn't really, but there was like, I feel
that
like
was like the fourth Ninja War arc. Then
it was.
Just kept going.
Yeah. It's like the manga arc that you wish ended like 10 years ago that just kept on going. And like, there's some really abhorrent trolling that was done. And again, like some of it is so bad that I do still feel sorry for Chris. Like, wouldn't he shove stuff up his, his member at the time?
Up his member?
Did he do that, or was it his butt?
It was the butthole.
Which isn't very good.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah. But yeah, this was a very unfortunate, very dark episode in Chris's life where Chris believed that their girlfriend at the time was being kidnapped by their evil brother or whatever. And also their PlayStation Network account was also being hacked and held hostage. So Chris had to choose which one would you prefer to save, your girlfriend or your PSN account?
At which
They chose.
Chris
chose the girlfriend, but by choosing so, Chris believed that they would get both because they made the right choice.
like a Bible, you made the right choice.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was the £5
Yeah,
note.
it's the money of the Bible. It's the money of the Bible. You get both if you pick the Bible.
Wow.
But yeah, during the course of this debacle, Chris was tasked with either, I think, burning their Sonichu medallion, which they fashioned out of like Play-Doh or a clay.
Yeah.
Very iconic piece of.
Either burn it or put it up their butthole. So Chris chose to cut it up into smaller pieces first because it was too big.
Of course, totally
Yeah, don't burn it at that point. It's already destroyed, but don't burn it. Then put it up your butt.
You can put it back together afterwards, right?
What was the logic behind cutting it up instead of burning it? Is this ever explained?
No.
It's just like, what if you're destroying it? Why not choose the option of destroying it?
Well, because you can still put it back together, right?
Maybe
Was that the thinking?
Maybe Chris thought that they didn't have access to matches.
Oh,
I'm not sure. I really don't know. Which is kind of ironic, given what happens later. But
yeah.
Wait, what happens later?
No, we'll save it. We'll save it. Wait, you don't know?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
It's like one of the most biggest plot points in the whole story.
We haven't even got to the plot twist.
I'm so invested in this story.
It's like one of the most well-known parts of the story.
I might know it if you remind me.
Maybe we'll talk about it later.
it's in part 39, by the way. So
Part 39. I remember because this was the part that I was waiting for to happen because I'd heard so much about it and I wanted to know. I know, it's insane. So, yeah, there's Chris put the thing up their butt and filmed it. And obviously in your version, you censor it for the...
I believe it was like a Skype call or something. So the person acting as the girlfriend and also the evil twin brother, they were the same 13-year-old boy, by the way.
13-year-old boy.
13-year-old boy doing this.
What?
So yeah, after the shoving, they revealed themselves to be a 13-year-old boy and that the girl never existed, which distraught Chris. There were other
naturally.
Yeah, there were other members of that trolling group in the call, but just listening and being muted. But after that, they came out and said, "Jesus, stop!" Like they knew that.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah,
they knew that this boy went way too far. Obviously.
Yeah.
It's so disgusting that that only like a sick kid would ask someone to do this.
Yeah.
When I was 13, I think I was just playing Jenga or something. I don't know what the fuck I was doing. I certainly wasn't thinking about that. I wonder, like, how do these kids do this?
Right?
That's like throughout this thing, it's almost as much as Chris was doing some really abhorrent stuff. I almost find that everyone involved was also very guilty of doing some really heinous things.
Yeah.
And it felt like anyone who went near this like cesspit of drama was just dragged into doing really horrible stuff.
Honestly, the entire thing just sounds like a shit show. Like
It's like
figuratively and literally. Like
it is the worst part of the internet in every aspect. It shows every single terrible thing a troll can do. It shows the terrible nature of what feeding trolls does.
Yeah.
I don't think there's, and that's why it's almost hard to look away because it's so fascinating.
It's such a magnificent train crash, right? That you just like,
it's like the train crashes and does 10 backflips and then lands and then catches fire.
Yeah.
It's just almost like everything that it's just so insane. And I think that's why, again, you should go and watch Geno's video on it. or videos.
Wait, well, hold on. Like you guys like blue ballsing me with this like plot
All right,
point
okay,
right here.
okay.
Like I need to know.
So there's the whole
Is this
trolling
the best
thing.
arc?
No, I don't know. Is this the best arc?
So yeah, go on.
So yeah, so the trolling with the fake girlfriends thing went on for quite a while, pretty much until Chris's father died.
Right.
This was 2 years, right?
About 2 or 3 years, yeah. So after that, they decided, let's leave Chris alone. They've suffered enough, I guess. I guess that was their thinking.
Yeah, 2 years later, I think we've done enough damage.
Yeah.
I think this is enough. Like it should have been stopped at the medallion being
right.
shoved up.
Yeah, so there was a solid year where Chris didn't do much except occasional Facebook posts. Yeah, and then fast forward to 2014, where in the middle of the night, Chris was, I believe, trying to make a cup of coffee, and the extension cable which connected to their coffee maker, it was like draped over the bathroom door, and like the constant opening and closing like damaged the wire. It caught fire. The house caught fire. Yeah, it was a.
You also have to understand that at this time, Chris's house is a hoarder's house.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
So,
okay.
when you hoard stuff, your house just goes up in flames.
Yeah, of course.
That was the problem, is the reason why this was so jank, and the reason why the coffee machine was so fucked to begin with, is because there was no floor space.
Right.
And I believe there was 2 or 3 cats inside this hoarder's house.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
no.
Did the cats? I don't know if the cats. I assume the cats unfortunately didn't make it.
One cat died. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
now I'm sad.
That's
Now I'm
that's what's so sad about this, is that in some aspects you kind of don't feel sorry that Chris ruined their own life, because you almost this is done by yourself.
Yeah.
But I think the most unfortunate part about this is not only is Chris's parents and dragged into all of this mess, but also pets as well.
Yeah, just like other, like innocent bystanders just got involved.
This manager got ran over. There's many
right.
points in this story that are so sad. Just for, again, it's like a vacuum. If you're involved with Chris in any way, generally not good stuff was happening. And the hoarder's house. There's pictures of it. I'm sure you can show it on screen, right? It's totally fine.
Yeah, probably fine.
It's fine. This is what it looks like. It's pretty bad. It's very, very
So
bad.
was Chris the hoarder, or was it the
Chris
parents?
was mostly not the hoarder. Actually, Chris's room was the most tidy.
mother, right?
It was Chris's mother. Yeah, she was the hoarder, and actually resulted in a pretty, I guess, infamous video of Chris, who after posting a house tour video on YouTube,
Which is insane to think that you would post a tour of that.
Yeah.
right, for a girl, obviously.
Right.
Girl, as far as Chris knew.
Yeah.
Chris's father found out and demanded that Chris take down the video off of the internet, which was kind of an impossible task for Chris to do. Yeah. And then during the recording session where Chris was shouting at the camera and all the trolls to take it down now, Chris's father walks in and they have this little discussion about Chris saying about Chris's father saying, if the health department sees this video, we're gonna be evicted. You just stuck a knife in our backs and killed us with your video is what he said. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So it was very
Jesus.
crazy video. Yeah.
When you're watching this video, you have to watch the video to get a real horrible sense of scale of this. It is essentially like a jungle gym. You can't even the camera you can't see anything. There's
Right.
junk everywhere. And it's just too zoomed in.
Yeah.
So every time you're looking around, you can't get a sense of scale of anything because there's just so much stuff.
Jeez.
And obviously, hoarders' houses are basically just fire hazards. I mean, that's the reason why you get evicted, because you can't do that.
That's exactly what happens, right?
Yeah.
Cockroaches, probably also. I believe the cats were also sick at the time. Is that right? Or they weren't?
I wouldn't be surprised.
You can't
They
be
were-
healthy.
Yeah.
There were other later cats who became sick in the house. Yeah.
Right. I remember watching a video when they moved to the new place, which was was it provided by the government?
There was a new temporary rental place. Yeah, that was provided by the house insurance agency. Yeah.
Right.
And I remember there was a point in this video where you could hear the cat, and it sounded like it was dying.
God.
It sounded very bad.
Dogs too. Honestly.
Yeah, the dogs as well, right?
No, leave the animals
Yeah,
out of
right.
it.
It's a horrible story, and I think it puts into. You often ask the question of how ethical is it to watch all this stuff and document it and talk about it? Is that something that you often struggle with when you're
Yeah.
making these videos?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing about your video that I could get is that it seemed like you it was just pure documentation. You know?
Right.
You weren't putting your opinion into it. It was just pure. This is what happened, and this is just a pure documentation of things you can already find on the internet.
Yeah, it's kind of just
Exactly, yeah.
like, just laying out the information and kind of leaving it up to the viewer to make their own opinions about the whole case,
For
whatever
better
it
or for
might
worse.
be, right?
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
Because I think that's what really attracted me to your videos is that, again, there was just no input from you, but also made you kind of a mysterious figure. It's like you always start the video saying like, who is Chris? What drives it? I'm like, who's Geno? Why is he making this video? Which is why I wanted to bring you on, because I really wanted to learn more about you as well and what drives you to make these videos. Because I feel like, it takes a mental toll, I imagine, having to document this stuff. And there are some lines that you have to say out loud because you narrate Chris's words.
Yeah.
And there's some very funny out of context clips of you being like just shouting really funny stuff about
Yeah.
putting stuff up your ass.
Yeah.
Sorry, I hate to do you like that.
It's the burden he has to bear.
Yeah, it is the burden.
At which point were you just like committed to like? I mean, with that way you were just committed to, I assume, completing this thing. I mean, you've gotten this far, right?
I mean, I was committed since the beginning.
Yeah.
I imagine I was not expecting this to last this long, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do understand that some parts may be a bit boring for some, and just the constant maybe Facebook like readings of a Facebook posts or tweets, for example, which I do cut down as well, but I find it interesting and relevant to the story, which is a kind of
It's alright.
kind of
man.
a conflict for me.
Every anime has its filler arc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that's what makes your video so compelling is that it almost feels like no stone is left unturned. Like every single thing is included. Is that fair to say that you include pretty much everything?
Not really.
Oh, really?
Most things that are really not interesting or not relevant to the
Even
development
remotely,
of the story, then yeah, I do skip over them.
So how much stuff is, when you have the episode,
Yeah.
how much stuff in between like tweets or Facebook posts is cut? Like if you had to give like a ratio of like how much information makes it in to not in the video.
Possibly about 1% doesn't make it.
Oh, so nearly everything else goes in. It's like literally everything goes in. All right. Wow.
I mean, it depends on how much detail on how much time I spend on it. Like, for example, if it's a vaguely interesting tweet, for example, I just mentioned that Chris talked about this, or like if it's more compelling, if it's more interesting, I just read word for word most of it, for example. So I spend more.
Yeah, because
more
I was
time
about
on
to
it.
say, like, if you had said, like, about 20%, that would have been like, Jesus, how much content is there on this person? My
A worrying
God.
amount. A worrying
right?
amount.
Like,
Yeah.
I already watch your videos and I go, my God, this is more information than, several generation families that, have on the internet, let alone just this one single person.
Oh God, I remember. What year did Chris transition?
2014, I believe.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is a very disturbing phase.
Yeah, that's what I
where-
want to, like, what
Disturbing
led, like, what
phase.
led
Yeah,
to the
there's a lot of
transition, I guess.
stuff that Chris does, and later Christine. They're very like worrying, I'd say.
Right.
Well, that happened a lot.
What's the line of worrying?
Yeah. I've already heard a lot of
happened a lot
boring
later.
things this episode.
So how did it start? We know that. How did all of it begin with Chris?
The transitioning.
Yeah.
yeah.
Chris very early on exhibited some interest in being a female. Like, for example, writing on public posts in a troll created forum, which was made to appear like a fan site for Chris Chan, but they're all just trolls.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Chris said that sometimes they thought that maybe life would have been better if they were born as a female, but since I was born since like God delivered this package, I must like feel it. I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah.
Chris sounded a lot more poetic than I do.
Yeah. Well, of course.
But
Very
yeah,
poetic.
then Chris started leaking some. Chris was sending nude photos to other girlfriends,
As you do.
which I featured Chris trying on their mother's underwear, bra as well.
Right.
So that was worrying as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after that, another girlfriend convinced Chris that maybe they would feel better jogging because they were very self-conscious about their man boobs bouncing around. So she suggested maybe Chris should wear a sports bra. And then Chris discovered that they really liked the feeling of a sports bra, and pretty much never took it off after that point, honestly, until they transitioned and started wearing women's underwear full time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like some people suggest that maybe Chris was influenced by trolls, saying some quotes exactly that Chris was convinced to become a female to explore their feminine side.
Right.
This is questionable. No one's really sure how this happened, but yeah, Chris started first identifying as like a lesbian soul in male body, something like that.
Okay.
Then-
Right.
I'm not very well educated on this stuff. It's very.
Yes.
I try to, but it's quite a lot of information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after about another half year or so, they fully embraced the identity of the new name, Christine,
Okay.
and changed their gender officially, even on their driver's license. So it's quite legit at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do use gender transitioning medication as well.
Okay.
So,
Right.
yeah.
I say concerning because during the first phase, it was very much a DIY transition.
That wasn't the first phase, actually. That was
Was it
like,
not?
That was quite a bit after.
Oh,
that.
was it? Oh,
yeah.
I felt like that because that was what stuck out to me. As,
What goes before DIY?
well, so
Well, Chris decided to expedite matters by listening to binaural beats on YouTube.
what is
which-
binaural beats? I still don't know what that is.
Binaural beats is a type of like a humming noise that's supposed to influence the way your mind works and kind
Yeah.
of change you in a certain way. Like, for example,
It uses
Change-
like a certain frequency, I
Yeah.
believe, that it almost acts as like a type of hypnosis
Right.
of sorts.
Is it a load of? Is it bullshit? Is it?
There is actually science behind
Is this
it.
a well-known thing? This is the first I'm hearing of this.
No, this is very much like a music, like.
Is it really a real
community
thing?
type of thing.
I mean-
there is some science behind it, but like
But-
the whole thing of like hypnosis and stuff like that is very.
I
It's
mean-
debatable.
Yeah.
I mean, binaural beats making you like feel uncomfortable or comfortable. Yeah, I can see that happening, but changing you from male organs to female sexual organs, then
Right.
Yes.
Chris was trying.
Yeah.
Chris was trying to grow boobs.
boobs, and then Chris was actually going to the actual channel of these binaural beats and asking the uploader, will this binaural beats video cause my testicles to develop into ovaries, or will they make another video about that, or something like
answer no.
It's very sad because in some aspects, this is where other aspects of the internet failed Chris, right? Like this is a predatory thing to, and I don't know if they encouraged or they said that, yeah, you'll grow boobs from listening to this beat. Like,
Yeah.
that's bullshit. But it's, and it
Yeah.
also, when you're desperate enough, as I imagine Chris was at the time, you be willing to believe it.
I mean, I'm sure Chris has fallen for more obvious stuff with like because this was after the trolling phase,
Right.
right?
Right. And didn't Chris end up in hospital for trying to? So this is a very disturbing thing. They believed that the opposite sex organs were inside. All they had to do was cut it open, and they did indeed do that, right? And they ended up in hospital.
what they cut was the space in between the
The douche, right?
I believe that's
I believe that's a way to call it. Yes.
I think it's called the gooch.
I think it's called the gooch. Yeah.
Oh, it was
The
douche,
gooch?
yeah, the
Yeah.
gooch. Sorry.
Skin between the balls and the butt, right?
Yeah, they cut
Right,
it.
that one.
Pretty deep cut, right?
They cut.
The
perineum.
perineum.
I don't fucking know.
There's lots of words
I'm
for
not
it.
educated on this. I don't touch that place often.
It is the perineum, also called the taint.
The taint.
Oh,
yeah.
The taint. So that's that's the space between the hole and.
I'm so sorry,
sack?
viewers. I'm so sorry.
We're
So-
using scientific terms here.
Yeah. Chris believed that in this space was where their labia would be if they were born as a woman.
So they
So they cut it open and posted photos.
they posted photos.
Oh yes.
What?
Wait, of after the act? Like after they cut
What?
it?
It must look like a crime scene.
Jesus.
Looks fine to me. I don't know.
You poor man.
Gino's like, I've seen worse.
I can't tell if Gino, if you've been broken by all of this. You've been so numb to it for so long.
Like a war veteran now.
Yeah.
It's like this doesn't
Murder.
even faze me
Do you know
anymore.
what sound a man makes when they die? I do, and I like it. They went to hospital for it, right?
They were very reluctant to go to the hospital because they
They were
thought
infected, right?
it could have been.
It was
It
left
could have been
on
really
enough
died,
to be
honestly.
infected?
Yeah.
From what I understand, it was very worrying.
It could have like
Yeah, no shit.
they could like cause like abscess or something and
Yeah.
then died from it eventually. But yeah, eventually trolls convinced Chris to go to the hospital and get it checked.
Oh,
Right.
the trolls convinced Chris to go
Right.
to the hospital.
Which is weird because then later on, I'd say from this point onwards is where it used to be like kind of like a almost torture hostage situation.
Yeah.
Where it was like, I want to torture you, but I want to keep you alive.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the trolls, and I believe especially what happened a little later on, is the founding member of the Kiwi Farms,
Right.
often would financially look after Chris and would help
Yes.
manage Chris's finances.
Right. That,
They
wasn't there like later there was like a group of people, right?
People
who
would
were-
often they did a GoFundMe, correct, after
were they called
something
the
after
Watchmen or something? Was that what they called?
The Watchman is a different thing.
Oh, okay, that's a different thing.
This is insane. So these people who had originally were trolling Chris ended up then
Supporting him.
supporting Chris and almost being protective of who can have contact with
Right.
Chris, right?
Yes, they were. Yeah.
It's weird, right? Because it feels like a hostage thing. Where it's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to feed you food and take care of you, but you're still my hostage.
Right.
And I
Like
won't
the
let you.
weirdest cult I've ever heard.
It's
of.
very strange.
Yeah. The thing is after Chris's father died, the main trolls behind all that kind of stopped their trolling and then moved on to Kiwi Farms, just like as an observation kind of thing and looking after
Right,
Chris.
right,
But
right.
like the other trolling that happened after that point was made by other people, which were not affiliated really with the original core.
Which
of
is
the
then there's like
trolls.
tons of different factions of
Right.
people who are obsessed with
Yeah.
with
So
Chris.
who are the Watchmen?
The Watchmen was a group
I believe
created.
it's a comic drawn by Frank Miller.
Pretty poor movie adaptation, apparently.
Yeah.
honestly.
Comic was definitely better.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Watchmen's not that long of a movie. Anyway, Watchmen were a group which were created for the sole purpose of protecting Chris,
Right.
which did not work at all. They're broken up at this point when it was revealed that some members of the Watchmen were actively involved with trolling Chris.
Oh my god.
Backstabbing the Watchmen.
Well, this is why it's such a fucking mess. Like every
Yeah.
single person involved is, has questionable motives.
Yeah, because I only found out about the Watchmen from the recent events.
Yes.
Right. And there's like 3 or 4 other groups or something that were all involved in all this stuff, and they all have their own names and stuff like that. and-
When did documenting Chris really reach its peak of popularity?
Peak of popularity.
Well, now it's very popular.
yeah.
Yeah.
But before this, I definitely felt like there was an increase of people who are benefiting and profiting off of Chris in many ways by making content around Chris in a almost harmful way.
This
Yeah.
is definitely a more recent phenomenon in the past few years, I
Yeah.
think.
Which is, I feel like, where it started to, it was kind of improving,
Yeah.
and Chris was not really involving much, and people were not really trolling Chris as much. And then when the popularity of documenting Chris, I swear it feels like it then started going backwards, and this trolling started to get worse again. And
Kind of coincides with the Idea Guys saga, no?
the Idea Guys?
The Idea Guys.
What's that?
It's another group, another trolling group, which
How many trolling groups are there? It is absurd
I
amount.
just love the names.
there's
The
a
names are great.
there's a new one every month.
Yeah, okay. So the Idea Guys.
So the Idea Guys were very detrimental to Chris's psyche because they convinced Chris that all these different alternate realities, alternate dimensions of like anime land and all these cartoons actually existed, and you could travel to them
They were the
interdimensionally.
ones.
Yeah, they were
Okay,
the ones.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so
and to this day, Chris still believes
Chris
that
still believes that
they
yeah.
can access this different dimension.
Yes, and Chris actually believed that at some points they were possessed by like Sonichu and other characters
And
as
that
well.
they were Sonichu, right?
right
Or something like that.
Like they were like it was Sonichu speaking through their body for like a solid
Don't worry about it.
it's a bad omen.
One of the Shishi was just like, all right, I'm going to yeet out. This is a bit too much for me, man.
Anyway, Sonichu was apparently talking through Chris's body for about half a year, honestly.
It's just like
Maybe-
you
maybe
can't
even more.
explain. Like it's so hard to keep up with this because even when we watch the whole series in depth, it is so confusing and there's so much stuff. And we've barely even touched on the fact that one of the main aspects of what Chris was doing was making a comic about Sonichu and all the stuff was.
That's what really started the whole attention
Yeah.
on Chris because their comic was so crazy and outlandish, and people realized that Chris was actually using the comic as a way to live out their own fantasies.
Yeah.
Right.
Like getting
Self-insert.
like
Yeah.
like a self. Well, there was a self-insert, yeah,
Main character was Chris.
basically.
okay.
So they believed they were Sonichu.
Right.
Yeah, right,
For
right.
a little bit.
And then there were other characters as well, right? From what I remember, there was like Rose Chu and stuff like that.
Roschu is Sonichu's love interest and wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also, I believe Chris also at many points would include real people that would die or would,
Yeah. Yeah, like
principle or something, right?
they would be the main villains, but no one actually died in Chris's comments because Chris believed that Quickville was real, and they didn't want to cause that much harm to the characters because they would feel hurt.
Right.
You know, I really believed this.
I say right, but like I
totally understand what's being said here.
Yes.
I'm totally following what's going on right now.
Also, one other thing that I also found very worrying was Chris's spending and lack of financial.
Okay, where did Chris get an income from? Now I'm curious.
Chris has a social security or disability payment called which Chris calls the tugboat. It's about $800 a month.
Okay.
And this is what Chris uses to pay off credit card debts and buy Legos, which brings him in, which brings Chris into more debt.
Right.
Chris gets money and immediately spends it on like toys, Legos, anything.
Yeah.
Which is very disturbing because I think Chris's mother at the time wasn't working either, very old, needed, and they were mainly relying on the income that Chris was
the mother
bringing
must
in.
have already
Right?
been like retired at that point.
Oh, they were. Yeah, no one's been working in that family since the 90s, I believe.
Right.
There's a very, very chilling video later on where Chris is getting their mother to promote Chris's selling of merchandise.
Yes.
And saying that they need money for food and stuff.
Right.
There's several videos like that. Honestly.
It's very concerning stuff.
Like merch is in like what?
Handmade merch by Chris.
Oh, it's like the Sonic Tune medallions and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, there were medallions. There
Yeah.
were signed photos, I believe, as well, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Jeez.
It's all very concerning
and
stuff.
I assume it's the trolls that are buying that kind of stuff.
I mean,
right? Just to like fuel the fire, I guess.
At this point, are they really trolls? Are they just like almost like fans?
Super
now?
fans.
People want to get in on it.
It kind of sounds like a symbiotic relationship,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
where Chris feeds the trolls and the trolls feed
Feed
Chris.
yeah. And it just doesn't end. Yeah.
And by acquiring objects from Chris, they become part of Christery in this.
Yeah, that's it's serious. These people are very invested in it.
I love that term. It's
I really enjoy keeping up with it, but also I do feel like I'm consuming something bad. Like I am taking part and helping and fueling a very dark side of the internet.
Yeah.
Right. But it's also just so insanely fascinating just because again, we've never had anything like this in the history of the internet, I feel. Like it's so so outlandish. Right. Like is it a good
I'd argue
thing?
in the history of the world.
Honestly, like it's just so everything about it is just so outlandish. It just doesn't sound real.
I think because everything that should have protected Chris failed.
Right.
Everything that should have been a safety.
It feels like this is almost like a case study, you know.
Yeah.
Of how not to parent, how not to
act on the internet.
Yeah, how not to literally a case study of how not to do everything.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It feels like.
Anything about this, just don't do it. Yeah.
Do you feel, when you're, because obviously you're making the documentary.
Yeah.
How do you handle dealing with like the moral implications of it sometimes and struggling with that if you do it all? Like,
I usually don't.
Yeah, you just like whatever, just power through.
Yeah, because I convince myself that I'm just documenting. It's all right.
I agree.
Yeah,
I don't see what you're doing as anything inappropriate or wrong by any means.
Right.
Yeah, because it's not like you're like one of the trolls that's
It's
pulling
out there,
information
right?
out,
Right,
Like it's already
exactly,
existed out there, yeah.
But I think by watching it in its entirety or watching it in parts, you really do just end up feeling sad about the whole situation.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like if you hear little bits and you get very tailored information in a way that leaves out important details, you might be more likely to participate or fuel trolls to join in. Whereas I feel like if you watch the documentary, there's no way you can be sitting there thinking, yeah, I want to join in and troll.
Yeah.
You're just like, fuck, man, Jesus.
Yeah, definitely.
This video is sponsored by Final Gear. Final Gear is a mech-styled RPG that is set in an apocalyptic world. It'll soon be released in the US, Europe, and Thailand, featuring over 100 gorgeous maiden pilots for you to train and thousands of powerful mech suits for you to unlock. Assemble your mech as you wish with your favorite pilots. It's a side-scrolling shooter game with real-time tactical maps. Upgrade your base strategically to achieve the final victory with greater ease. Final Gear, with its plentiful characters, fascinating storylines, distinctive mech-related elements, and exquisite shooting style, is loved by loyal fans all over the world. Players share tips and strategies and show off their cool and powerful custom mechs every day. We've also got plenty of gifts and events in our game communities and social media. So what are you waiting for? Download Final Gear now. And don't forget to use our code ONSCREEN right now to get some extra goodies. Final Gear is the all-new strategic RPG featuring mechs and maidens. Remodel your mechs at your will. Train tons of beautiful multiple pilots and tons of different occupations, and experience breathtaking mech battles. A journey featuring powerful mechs and beautiful pilots is about to begin. Captain, let's fight side by side. The game has also previously been released in Japan, South Korea, and China, and has received tons of great feedback. And it's going to be released in September 30th in the US, Europe, and Thailand.
One of the main reasons I reached out to you and asked you to come on the podcast is, well, first of all, I found out that you lived in Japan, which is great. Very convenient for us because we only let in-person guests come on.
Yeah.
And two, obviously, there was some massive recent news
Yes.
at the time of recording. This will be published a lot later. And I kind of want to get into the most recent history. And obviously, if people who are the history.
Come on now.
sorry.
Every time we say Chris or Geno's like,
Part of you dies inside.
Must be like whiplash. Like we said, there was a very big news, and I guess let's talk about the very recent history. Sorry,
there you go. You got it.
About it, because I think the viewers who don't know anything will be intrigued, or viewers who do know will want a little recap, maybe.
Yeah.
So what would you say is like the very recent where it began, I guess, or where the arc or whatever, if you will.
So this all started at the end of July of this year when a certain phone call was leaked, like a Discord voice chat, was leaked between Chris and a certain female party. A real female, real female, by the way.
An actual female.
Yeah.
Who was actually obsessed with Chris, right?
That's a different female.
Okay.
Right.
There was someone who genuinely like wanted to be with Chris.
Yes.
Who was in this group. Is that correct?
Yes. There was, but this is a very disgusting female, troublesome female, and they were chatting away, and Chris revealed very casually how their recent development in their relationship with their mother was going, and how it started, and how the mother.
When did this development start?
I guess June or July of this year, as far as we know.
Right.
Yeah, Chris was exploring their mother's body, and
This is actually sickening. To
It's
get
so
with.
disgusting. It's so disgusting.
quite crazy.
But I remember when it started, everyone was like, please say psych. Like,
Yeah.
please say this is a joke. I remember that even the Kiwi Farms members were like, no, I'm sure there's a mistake.
Yeah. What was originally leaked was a 4.5 minute edit of the call, which was very heavily edited, which originally removed all mentions of the female party in the call, so you didn't hear her at all. So it sounded very fake and edited. So I thought maybe like
They've been stitched together. So,
spliced
right.
together to make it sound like that. But no, later at another point, like a 9-minute call was leaked with the full context, and no, Chris was actually doing this apparently. I was hoping that Chris was like astral projecting and like maybe in their mind having intercourse with their mother in Quickville.
You just wanted to justify
like
it in
that.
any way that made it not
Please
real.
not be real.
Of course.
I know I saw that argument quite a bit when the news first broke out, because, the whole thing of Chris, with the whole Quickville thing being, almost in this delusional world, right? So I think the biggest argument was that they just imagined that they, did stuff with their mother. But in reality, we have no proof kind of thing, other than this call, obviously. But
Yeah. Chris was talking about how at first she said no, and how she was very confused. But then apparently Chris satisfied her in a way that their father never could.
It's you can't make this up. It's so fucked.
I actually feel physically sick.
Yeah, I do. I feel
Like,
it's
I'm-
disgusting.
This is like
This is the most
every bone
disgusting
in my,
episode.
Like every bone in my body. Like I think this is the worst and the most.
I definitely feel we need to
physically-
put a disclaimer at the beginning of this episode.
we're gonna have to.
Yeah.
Because and what's more messed up is that this all came out of Chris's mouth as well. Like, this wasn't paraphrasing or anything. This was like their
It was
voice.
how proud I think Chris sounded. It was very
Yeah.
disturbing.
Yeah.
And how almost like happy they were was very disturbing.
Yeah.
And it was just, for every time you feel that Chris understands social norms or understands the situation, there's just another one that slaps you in the face where you're like, Chris has no understanding of what the fuck is right or wrong, I feel.
I feel like I've heard serial killer stories that are less disturbing than some of the stuff I've heard
Right.
now. Like this is just going like so many stages beyond what is even like comprehensible of what a human mind can do. It's it's.
If someone wrote this in a story, they would be like, unrealistic.
Yeah, I know.
This is
Yeah.
bullshit. This is so stupid.
Yeah.
No one would ever do this.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's just so sad. And then also, Chris later is Chris currently in prison or in jail?
Currently in jail, yes, because
Rightly so.
yeah,
For incest
I mean-
charges, I believe.
for incest charges, yes, because over 200 people called the local police department after that call was leaked, and Chris and their mother were actually first separated. Chris had to find some other form of accommodation for a while their mother was being checked in a health center, and Chris was at a hotel, and there were lots of people outside the hotel recording and taking pictures and waiting for a celebrity to come out of the door.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
Yeah,
It
like
was
the trolls immediately found where they were staying, right?
It's just disgusting, these trolls doing
Yeah.
this. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, what? This is not something to like try and get a scoop of.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
this is just tragic.
And then the police came around, and Chris was arrested publicly in front of everyone. And then Chris said that the merge was happening, like the merge of dimensions of cartoon and reality were happening. And I was like, Chris doesn't realize what they're getting into.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, because, when I saw the news break out, and I think there was a guy who was live streaming the entire
Yes.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's another lol cow. If you will, yeah.
So one of the lolcows was live streaming the arrest of Chris.
And these guys seem so pathetic.
Yes.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely pathetic human being. Because the guy was shouting at Chris like a fucking paparazzi. You know, being like, "How do you feel? Like what's going on in your mind right now?" And of course, Chris is
Just like smiling, very jovial throughout this whole
but
arrest.
what's so disturbing is that throughout that entire time where Chris is talking about, the dimensions merging and that they have, like Sonichu and Rose Chu in their presence or whatever they were saying, the entire time, again, they were smiling. Like, they have no idea how much shit they're actually
Wonders,
in
like,
right now.
did Chris understand what being arrested?
I don't even think Chris understood what was happening.
Also, I believe they were like plugging their channel as well while he was. Well, I think they were plugging their channel while Chris was something like that.
Yeah,
they were plugging their channel a lot of places. It's just like, what are you guys doing?
There was so much wrong with that live stream.
Yeah.
Kind of just want to bleach my ears.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Listening
right?
to all this
Yeah.
now. Like,
It was really hard to sit through the footage, but
Yeah.
my God, it was insane.
As fucked as it is, it's also super fucked the sheer amount of people that are trying to just milk this for content.
Yeah.
A lot of people just, are making really terrible clickbait videos that were like 10 minutes that didn't include anything and would just put Chris's name in the title because it was a hot topic.
Of course.
And I believe you actually you announced a hiatus
Yes.
after this happened.
Yeah, I was actually originally planning a hiatus anyway after part 60 came out, but in light of these events, I thought 59 is close enough. So I released 59, I guess, as scheduled, maybe a day after the arrest or so. And then I did a hiatus stream saying, I'm going on break until next year. See you around.
Yeah.
Is this
Yeah.
because of the allegations?
Yeah, because I want things to cool down. I don't want to take advantage of the situation, so I'll back away for a bit. Yeah.
I mean, props to you.
Yeah, super commendable.
It'd be very easy to be like, you know what? This is probably the highest search terms, the best SEO for Chris Chan right now. It's everywhere. Every video about Chris Chan's getting 1 million views. I could just pump it out right now and get 2 mil. But props to you, man. I do.
That's big boy move right there.
yeah.
You won a lot of respect points from me for doing that. This must have been a tough call. I'm sure a lot of people are like, no, release the next part.
Yeah.
Tell us about all the details.
Actually, most people were very understanding.
Really?
Yeah, actually, I was very surprised.
I mean, I guess from the seriousness
Yes.
of the situation, right?
Well, when it happened, did you get like a barrage of messages and emails?
I did, yes. They're slowed down for now, yeah, but I probably did get 200 or 300 Twitter DMs saying, I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
No.
It's like
Sorry for your loss.
it's like a personal loss, like a family member or something.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Is this the end then? Do you think this is the end of the story?
It's a very quiet part of the story, at least.
Right.
But yeah, since Chris is in prison now, or in jail actually, awaiting trial in September, I believe.
Yeah.
There's nothing coming out of Chris. Nothing at all. So it's very quiet. It's just speculation and discussion.
I do hope because in courthouses in America you can just turn up, can't you? If you're
You can turn up, but I believe there's laws against recording.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't record. Yeah, I'm
You can
pretty sure, but-
you can write an account of what happened.
I
later
somehow
on, but
have
yeah.
the feeling that we'll get some audio recording.
I somehow have a feeling that the trolls are going to find a way.
They're going to find a way.
Yeah.
It's going to be so sad. This is already disgusting enough. The last thing you want is like 20 trolls in the courthouse just like giggling away, watching this all go down.
Horrible.
I don't know.
Don't be that guy.
This is the why this whole thing I say is a cesspit, because anyone involved with this in most capacity, is a piece of shit.
Right, like both parties are just as
Geno,
horrible
you're
as
good.
one
You're good.
another.
I there are a lot of people who are out there trying to take advantage in any single way they can
Yeah.
to get a quick buck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just, oh man, it's just nuts. The more I think about it, I'm just like, this would be the greatest told fictional story of all time. And then you remember
Horror story.
nothing is fictional about this.
I think the most horrible thing about this is that this is real. You know?
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
actually like this actually happened.
Yeah.
This happened in real life, and it's just so well documented.
And it's just like all these events, when you hear them separately, they sound like, like that would
It would be
already
the worst moment of somebody's life.
Right,
If
of
most of
somebody's
these-
like one of those things. And to think that all came from one person.
Yeah, that's why I think, people say most documented person in history. I don't think that's correct. I think it's just the most embarrassing documentation of someone in history.
Right.
No one has taken as many L's as
Yeah.
Chris. No one has self-given that many L's.
Right.
Like the sheer amount of disturbing stuff that has been self-documented.
Yeah.
Serial killers haven't reached this level of fucked up stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
We've had serial killers with more class than some of the stuff that Chris has been doing, which is worrying to say.
Yeah.
And I again, like the whole situation is very sad.
Yeah.
And I've never wanted somebody to lose access to the internet more than Chris at many points.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just sometimes you see people online and you just think you should not have any kind of internet presence at all. And I think this is just the worst example of just like everything that can go wrong and everything that has gone wrong.
Yeah, when I
will
found
go
out
wrong.
when I found out that Chris had a Twitter, I was like, oh no. Oh,
This,
no. Why?
I feel like Chris is before this drama happened recently, Chris had been pretty tame online.
Yeah.
Chris had, I think, had actually commented in one of our videos.
What?
I believe so.
Really?
When?
When we spoke about Chris on Trash Taste.
Are you serious?
I believe Chris had actually commented on it, and a very normal comment.
Right.
And Chris had been pretty chill, I'd say. Was pretty calm about
As
most
far as
things.
we know, yes.
Until the shitstorm happened.
Yeah.
It was the calm before the storm.
Right.
What was the arc before that then?
Arc before that.
I feel like it was mainly like a lot of people were hoping that, and Chris was getting better, and that was generally calmed down a lot and wasn't doing as many questionable things. Is that correct in saying?
Yeah, definitely. Right before this happened, there was a certain book published on Amazon comparing Andy Warhol to Chris Chan, and
What?
Why?
because apparently there was a legit argument for that.
Right.
There was some interesting comparisons there. I actually I was in contact with the author before it was published, and he gave me a advanced copy. Seemed pretty good, I guess.
And you
Was
read
it
through
good?
it and
I guess it was good. I didn't read too much of it though.
Yeah.
Didn't have much time. But Chris apparently did have enough time. They bought it themselves, and they were reading through it, and they were enjoying it actually.
That's what's weird, is that Chris participates and consumes all the stuff about themselves.
I mean, in a sense, there's like kind of an kind of coolness to being compared to someone like Andy Warhol, right? Like as much as like some weird shit Andy Warhol has done in his life, he's also like an artist. Right?
Yeah.
So like I think to Chris to be like, oh cool, someone says I'm like Andy Warhol. That's kind of epic.
What's most sad about this whole story is that at any point during Chris's earlier life could have been salvaged if their parents just took away the fucking internet.
Right.
Yeah.
Take away the PS5, something. Just do something. Like a complete lack of parenting in many ways.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely.
Why, how on earth was Chris posting all this stuff online, and the parents had absolutely zero knowledge? How did that happen? And if they did have knowledge, why the fuck didn't they stop any of this?
Well, maybe because they're old age, right? Could be. Maybe they're like a generation gap.
They didn't understand the impact of what
I don't
Chris
think
was
they
doing
understood the
online.
internet.
I just feel like everyone in their life has just failed Chris. you
Yeah.
know, and it just feels like now Chris is now just a part of that cycle as well.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's what happens when your parents fail you and you take, you often pick up, I'm sure we've all done it, where you've picked up aspects of your parents that you're like, oh God, I wish I didn't pick that up.
Yeah.
Like little things, but normally with most people, it's little quirks, it's
Yeah.
like,
or like things you say.
yeah,
right?
it's small behavior, not,
Yeah.
not life destroying
Yeah.
habits most of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Scary.
it is a chilling tale about parenting, I feel most of the time. Where do you think it all went wrong, or where do you think Chris was failed the most? Was it, and how much blame do you put on Chris?
That's tricky. Yeah, a lot of the blame goes to the parents. At the very beginning, they encouraged Chris to see the world as against Chris, because Chris had autism and they were treated differently because Chris had autism, and any action that Chris did could be excused because Chris had autism.
Right.
So Chris was raised with this understanding that the world was bullying Chris all the time.
Which is not something you should teach to your kid.
So Chris was given the mindset of, I'm always the victim, but also I can be excused for my actions.
Yeah, Chris, because their parenting was so bad, Chris was mostly raised by television, by cartoons, by
games,
by anime games,
Right.
by pornography as well.
Right.
Chris learned most of the outside world from those sources, and Chris would often say things that would be like cliche lines in a TV show,
Right.
like it takes a real man to admit his mistakes. He would say that, and thinking that would solve the problem.
Sounds cool in a TV show.
Yeah.
Not so much in reality.
And they would infamously in their videos would do the claw of fail, as they say, like this threatening gesture, like a cartoon villain.
Yeah.
Like damn, like that,
damn
right?
you, like that,
And always
right.
take off their glasses for dramatic effect as well.
Right.
Just feels like a lot of it is also motivated by trying to have sex as well. I mean,
That too,
that's-
which is also caused by the media that Chris consumed, like as this amazing goal that one must achieve. Chris once stated in a video that some of the life goals were driving to Ohio, which Chris completed, playing the lottery, which Chris completed, and the Virgin Breaker was still not completed yet. So Chris was aiming to tick that off the list.
This felt like the monkey's palm of wishing. Chris got the wish complete, but at what cost?
So I was going to ask,
Everything.
before her mother, did she ever lose her virginity?
Yes,
Okay, really?
prostitute.
Oh, that's right. I remember this.
The prostitute arc, of course.
Of course,
I remember that.
the very
Of course. Well, the oldest profession in the world.
obviously.
I feel so bad for the prostitute.
It is again, you present a scenario and you pick the worst choice. It's like going through heavy rain, pressing nothing. You know what I mean? Right. It's literally the worst outcome and the worst input in an RPG or something.
Yeah.
It's fathomable just how many bad decisions were made back to back to back to back. And still, Chris always found a way to get a fucking internet access.
Yeah, and it just sucks, right? Because they were given the choice, and they always picked the wrong choice, and it sucks because no one was there to lead them in the right direction, right? Like
Because the trolls were the only ones who had
the
contact
trolls were
with
the only ones, and of
Chris,
course the
so
trolls are
they
going to
egged him
lead
on.
them down the wrong direction.
It feels like in a way that Chris was raised by trolls. You hear about people being
honestly.
raised by wolves and whatever. Like,
Honestly.
because some of this stuff sounds feral.
Yeah,
it
really
it
does.
does almost sound on like that level of just a case study where you have a child that's just raised by wolves, except just replace the wolves
Living in the mountains.
replace the wolves with the most like the lowest internet trolls you can think of,
Yeah.
and this is what you get.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate as well that I think the time around Chris was raised was definitely like the whole like American Pie era of films where sex was like the goal.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you were a young boy, 16, it was like everything was about. Even when I was growing, I'm sure you guys felt the same.
Yeah,
But
of course.
everything
Yeah,
in
yeah.
media was like,
Like, get laid.
oh my God, you're going to lose your virginity tonight at the prom?
Yeah.
That's how it was,
Yeah.
And as the movies would say, it's always at the third date. So,
Yeah.
So Chris always specified that no sex before the third date. Yeah.
But I imagine if it came up in the conversation, I'm sure Chris would have been delighted. Yeah.
Yeah. To add on the being raised by trolls thing, Chris was actually given lots of reasonable advice, I guess, by the trolls during that era of 2009, 2010, like clean up your room and stop and get a job and get at least a part-time job in Walmart, for example.
Yeah.
And trolls were trying to make Chris realize that Sonichu could never make them money because it was an amalgamation of Pokemon and Sonic.
Sadly, I don't think you can file that
Obviously.
IP.
So yeah, they wanted Chris to give up on that fantasy and be more productive in society, which Chris did not do.
But at this point, Chris had never been made to have to do anything that they didn't like. Chris was always just doing whatever they wanted to do.
Right.
If Chris
Right.
wanted to play games all day, Chris would play games all day. So it's kind of, I think it's hard when you've gotten to the age of 20, 25,
Yeah.
and then you're suddenly told, hey, don't play video games anymore. Don't do these things online.
Like
Start
reality
working.
slaps you in the face.
Yeah, start working a 9 to 5 That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and if the person is never forced to do that
Yeah.
by parents or an external force, of course it's not going to happen. I only worked at McDonald's because my parents told me it was a good idea and I wanted money.
Yeah.
That's all. I wouldn't have done it.
Well, what's so weird is that those same trolls who were telling Chris to, get a job and clean
Yeah.
his room were the same trolls who were like, hey, you should shove your medallion
Yeah,
up
right.
your butt.
It's
I mean, like, what do you think the trolls wanted out of all this? Because
Just entertainment. Probably.
Entertainment, yeah, and more Sonichu comics. At that time, they were really looking forward to the Sonichu
It was like a hot
comics.
commodity at the time.
really, was it that?
It was
Why did people want
Sonichu
more
was
of
more
it?
known than Chris for a very long time.
Yeah.
As like an internet meme.
Yeah.
And then now I feel like it's very much flipped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why was this? Why did the Sonichu the comic like gain popularity?
Well, because Sonichu as a comic was created first by Chris when they were, I think, from 21 years old, and it looks like it's drawn by someone considerably younger, like a 5-year-old, for example. It's debatable.
So Chris didn't have the most amazing art skills.
Chris did not,
Right.
or storytelling
Shocking.
skills,
Better
or,
than me.
or any kind of skills, honestly.
Right.
But so that's why this ridiculousness of the comics was the appeal for a long time, and also Chris started to focus more on the Chris in Quickville rather than Sonichu a lot of the times, and beating up
Trolls.
trolls and the
the
security
comic.
guards.
Yeah, in the
mall.
comic.
Yeah.
Where whenever anything bad happened in Chris's life,
Right.
often it would be appearing in the comic as like a
Right.
kind of, when you get insulted and then you go back home and you remember how you should have responded.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like that, where
Right.
instead of being like, I should have said that in the moment, Chris is like, I'm going to draw the scenario in which I come out on top as the Sigma male.
Right.
It's the thoughts you have in the shower.
Yeah.
Shampoo bottles clapping you.
Yeah, exactly.
And during this time, the trolls were accusing Chris of being gay, which Chris did not agree with.
Well, because Chris was very homophobic at that time.
Very homophobic and very, very straight, according to Chris. So to prove this, Chris drew an entire episode of the comic where Chris's characters, Sonichu and Roaster, have very explicit sex. in the so-called children's comic.
How do you prove you're not gay? That's how you do it, clearly.
My God.
So that was a thing.
But then because, I understand like Sonichu and Roastu, not real IPs, right? But then later down the road, weren't like actual IPs used in the
Like
Quickville
Mewtwo
uni-
is
like
a character,
Mewtwo was a
right?
character, right?
What?
Yeah.
Eventually, I guess I didn't go up to the comics that far. Well, or I think Mewtwo is only married to Chris.
Yeah, Mewtwo's married. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Mewtwo is married
That's
to
right.
Chris in the Quickville dimension.
That's right.
No,
No?
in this dimension.
in this dimension.
Sorry, Gon. That's it. Sorry to confuse you there. I also, I feel like these details aren't important. Right? This is not an important detail.
Well, then what is an important detail?
I don't know. I think it's an important detail.
Why is it an important detail?
Because we have a person who is like, in this dimension, I am with Mewtwo.
Let's go to a Smash tournament.
Why?
There's a difference between maining Mewtwo and being with Mewtwo. Very different.
Why Mewtwo? Why?
I don't know.
Have you seen Mewtwo's hips? Damn! Damn!
I've never looked at Mewtwo and I'm just like, damn.
He has childbearing hips. Of course.
Thick as fuck, dude.
Is that a boyfriend-free girl? Like, is that what Mewtwo is?
Yeah, boyfriend-free
Yeah,
girl.
definitely a boyfriend-free girl.
Is that in the Pokedex description of Mewtwo?
Doesn't Mewtwo have no gender?
No gender in Pokemon.
No gender.
Yeah. Mewtwo's
Oh,
created in
how
a
very
lab.
progressive of Chris.
Of course, yeah. Chris used to be anti-asexual, so it's very different.
Anti-asexual.
Well, yeah,
Chris had a problem with people who didn't want to have sex.
right. The gay people and the asexual people too.
Right.
Because I believe that Chris was once rejected by a girl because she said that she was asexual. So
okay.
I think that's
I
why.
was going to say, I was like, that seems like a very
At least-
weird hill
at
to
least
die
twice,
on.
I think, actually. At least twice. But anyway, the Mewtwo thing is because of the idea guys,
Right.
the previously mentioned trolls,
The troll group, yeah.
which convinced Chris that they were in a relationship with both There's 3 husbands and wives. Mewtwo, Magic-Chan Sonichu, and Crizzle Rosechu.
How very progressive, I think.
Wait, what was the second one?
Magic-Chan Sonichu,
What is Magic-Chan?
which is a different character from the Sonichu comics. Magic-Chan.
And they put that idea in Chris's head.
Well, yes, the marriage idea. Yes. And
Wait,
also-
wait,
Why?
so-
Why do they do this?
Yeah,
why? Do they,
why?
What do they have to gain from it, from convincing Chris that they were married to Mewtwo?
for the lulz.
For the lols, of course.
For the lols.
This sounds like the worst like offspring of Inception that I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Like,
true. This is literally the worst Inception movie.
Yeah.
There's also a very troublesome account during the Idea Guys saga where the Idea Guys convinced Chris that they were holding Crizzle Rosechu, their love interest at the time, hostage, and they were torturing her. So in order to stop them from torturing her, Chris was forced to do many other things, such as film videos like urinating on the floor and then having...
Like on a carpet or like a laminated wood floor?
I think it was the carpet.
Oh, for fuck.
Oh, God.
Again, the worst choice.
Fuck, man. Like, oh, okay, carry on.
I think it was the carpet because I didn't get to that part in the doc, so I'll get to it later. But anyway, yeah. So then Chris was told to have pretend sex with a pillow while All Star by Smash Mouth played in the background. That was the thing.
What the fuck?
I'm sorry, that's just funny.
No, it's terrible.
It's almost funny to think about, but then at the same
It's just
time,
the
I
song
think about
choice. It was like,
it's
no,
the
it's-
song choice. The
I
song choice.
was disgusted, and for some reason I heard All Star Smash Mouth, and
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I just started laughing. I just
And
don't know
then
what
Chris-
other kind
and
of
Chris-
reaction to have.
Yeah,
honestly.
I don't know whether
And
to
Chris
laugh
did
or be
it?
disgusted.
And Chris did it, obviously.
Oh, my God.
Another trolling group at a later point leaked these videos on Chris's own Twitter.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, also the Idea Guys managed to extort over $6,000 out of Chris.
Fuck.
Okay, that's not cool.
That's not cool.
Yeah.
And this is where the owner of the QB Farms and another elite group of former trolls got together. Contacted
What makes them
Chris.
elite?
Yeah, I was getting elite troll.
Royal guard
Put
of
in,
trolls.
put in the special forces. Call it
Yeah.
the big
What
guns.
is an elite troll?
We're an hour and a half in, and we never even mentioned the man in the pickle suit. I can't believe this.
Wait,
Oh,
what?
how could we forget the man in the pickle suit?
Man.
Of course.
This was an earlier trolling attempt back in 2009,
Uh-huh.
2008, 2009, where Chris went on a real life date, if you will, with a female troll posing as a girlfriend, who was then snatched away by a man in the pickle suit because Chris hated pickles because it reminded them of penises. Of course, they're super straight, so
Right,
so they don't like
right,
that.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why.
Not that he doesn't like eating pickles.
Oh, they hate pickles too.
Oh,
All
yeah,
pickles, eaten or just seen. Anyway. Anyway,
Go
the
on.
guy behind the pickle suit costume is actually the administrator of the Quickie. And he's one of the moderators on the Christian forum on Kiwi Farms. So he's like a big shot still.
Wait. So a dude in an actual pickle suit arrived
Yes.
during the date
Yes.
and took the girl.
Yes.
What?
You know what? If that happened to me on
I
the
don't
date,
even remember
I'd probably
this.
be fucking
This is part
traumatized with
11.
pickles as well.
This is so early on that I think I've
Yeah,
forgotten about
this
this.
is part 11, by
Right.
the way.
Clearly a Rick and Morty fan.
Yeah. Pickle Rick before.
Shit,
it was
it's
a thing.
hilarious.
Before Rick and Morty.
Okay, so what
He
is this
literally turned up.
Oh my god.
funniest shit I've ever seen?
Funniest shit I've ever seen.
So what does this have to do with the elite trolls?
So the man in the pickle suit and the owner of the Kiwi Farms and another troll got together and seized Chris's Discord account, which was used to communicate with the Idea Guys. And from there, they found all this information, and they found then the addresses and names of the Idea Guys and tried to report them to the FBI. Actually,
Oh wow.
because this was a extortion of money across state lines, so it was a federal offense.
Right.
Yeah, so they even called the Idea Guys' mothers, to no avail.
I mean, because I assume they were all children, right?
Teens at least, or maybe
Yeah.
early 20s.
Probably
Yeah.
scared the shit out of them, though.
Probably. I think they stopped after that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, there was no case against them. Chris is still out $6,000.
Jeez.
Well, they were out until until a GoFundMe was established by the owner of the Kiwi Farms to get Chris a plane ticket and to go to a My Little Pony convention in California.
Oh, yeah.
They raised over $5,000, and like maybe less than a week after that was the phone call concerning Chris's mother.
Right, they were
released.
about to just go to the My Little Pony because they were obsessed with My Little Pony and because of course, and the Sonic series. And I remember there was a whole just series of Chris complaining about Sonic and the new series of
Man,
Sonic.
we missed that too.
Right.
that was back in 2014. God damn.
There was also like my favorite like troll who was like probably the most talented troll, like the Liquid Chris one. Is that what it's called? That's very good.
We should just go in chronological order.
Yeah, we should.
I skipped everything.
I'm so
Well, because
lost
it's not
right
really
now.
that important to the story, but it also the Liquid Chris is probably my favorite part because it's probably the most tasteful of all of this.
I love as well how every time a point is brought up, you say the date like it's like a real historical event.
Yes, of course, 1945, Germany.
December 2014 is
Yeah.
when it all happened.
I know how people feel when One Piece fans talk about their arcs now. It's like, oh yeah, the big mom arc.
so
How did we forget?
lobby
I'd say the only like tasteful troll, in my opinion, was the
could say,
Liquid Chris.
yeah.
Where someone did a spot-on impression of Chris's speech.
Speech pattern. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
And filmed videos as Chris and taunted Chris by like saying they were the real Chris. And it was very, very well done.
Right.
And the way that they would speak is like, it's very good.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
And they challenged Chris to like a sing-off or something.
Yes. How this started was Liquid Chris,
Right.
as he became referred to, actually started posting videos on YouTube as Chris just for the entertainment of his friends.
Yeah.
And then after a while, trolls noticed this and wrote emails to Chris about it saying, oh, this guy's trying to steal your identity. You should probably address this. And this is how they became involved with each other. And to prove who was the real Chris, they would do several things. Like for example, the actual real Chris, or Solid Chris, as they were referred to at this time.
Solid Chris. It's like Solid Snake.
No, this
Right.
is literally the plot to Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, Solid Chris posted their like real address, their phone number, their driver's
Proving it
license.
was them.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So
Why?
because they were the real.
They were the real
They were
one.
the
Only they would
solid
know.
Chris.
It's like that meme of like someone who, when it's like hacker who knows my address, me who knows it longer. It's literally that meme.
Yeah.
It's go.
So yeah, and then after that, Solid Chris, decided that the best way to go about proving this was to do a SingStar challenge where they would pick 3 songs for the other to sing, or it was like
Right.
something like that. But anyway, the best singer would be voted the champion.
It's like fucking American Idol.
But it's bizarre how Chris chose this. That's
Yeah.
what's.
And they amazing because Liquid Chris was actually a pretty good singer.
and very
Real
good
plot
at
twist.
and very good at playing guitar.
Playing
right?
guitar.
So like
Wow.
actually like just killed the songs, and Chris was terrible. That's what was so amazing about it, is that it was so funny.
My God.
Yeah. And then, and after the contest was over, according to a technicality, Liquid Chris won. And then they decided to call it quits and leave. And according to the Liquid Chris storyline on YouTube, he went off to get married with his girlfriend, and then go to Richmond and join Nintendo and make a Sonic 2 game, for example.
Right.
And then Chris was very angry with that.
Because they weren't the ones making the Sonic 2 game.
Right, yeah.
The fake Chris.
But
Yeah.
it was very well done trolling,
Yeah.
actually. It was
Yeah.
like where you're like, okay, trolling isn't too bad sometimes. Very tasteful, very funny.
That
No
just
one gets
seems
hurt.
like the tasteful prank.
Yeah, basically.
Because
It's-
because there's no repercussions in that, right? It's just good fun.
No
for
one's getting
everyone.
hurt.
I just
Yeah.
feel like
I
that is
mean-
just good content.
Yeah, that's good content.
I mean, Solid Chris was very angry. It was really entertaining videos.
But it's
I
not like
guess.
life-ruining things,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's just
not extortion
yeah.
of money or anything like that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you have compared to the other stuff, it's like, oh wow, something somewhat tasteful.
Yeah.
Right.
And then obviously there was the whole saga with Chris and Sonic and
Chris and Sonic, yes. So
Well, like the real Sonic?
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
not the fast food chain.
Yeah.
That's a different Sonic. Anyway, this Sonic, this was in relation to the new Sonic game at the time.
Sonic Boom.
Sonic Boom, that's it.
Right.
Yeah, the new TV show and game
Yeah.
which of course featured very wild redesigns of the characters,
Yeah.
Right.
including a Sonic the Hedgehog with blue arms,
Yeah.
which was incredibly offensive to Christine.
Right.
Okay.
Incredibly offensive. Oh my god. Chris
They
would
were
rant.
very angry, right?
Chris would rant on Facebook, and they would demand that GameStop would stop selling Sonic Boom. They would even buy Sonic Boom merchandise and break it apart and like paint and repaint their arms tan. And
Jesus.
they encouraged a boycott of Sonic Boom, even though they were purchasing Sonic Boom toys themselves.
Right.
So yeah, and then of course they went to a GameStop, and they tried to change the Sonic Boom game covers with one saying, "Please don't buy this game. Sonic's arms are not blue." And Chris was banned for that.
Of course.
And then
Of course.
Chris went back again around Christmas 2014. And then they were kicked out again. But during this point, someone noticed that Chris was there. They started filming a short video on their phone.
Uh-huh.
And on their way out, Chris pepper sprayed a GameStop employee.
It just doesn't sound real.
One thing I want to know is, has Chris ever had like a single real friend in their life? Have they had like an actual human connection?
I guess they're a gal pal from the game store, which Chris ruined that with that image.
Right.
Yeah, probably that.
So that was probably the one time where they had somewhat of a chance.
Yeah, because she actually had the friend actually had a brother who I think was also on the autism spectrum, so she was more
Right.
understanding of Chris's needs.
Right.
Right.
But yeah,
But obviously not that understanding.
Yeah, pretty much everyone in Chris's life failed Chris in every
Yeah.
single way, which
Yeah.
makes this a very tragic story.
I mean,
And a very
it's
compelling
just it's sick, it's fucked up, and it's also sad, right? Because it just seems like Chris has just never had like a proper human connection in their life, and
Yeah.
that's pretty fucked, because
Yeah.
everyone needs like a real human connection, and if the only connection you're getting and the only communication you're having is with internet trolls, and not just like light internet trolls, but like
I think I would lose my mind if I had that.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, honestly.
I would actually go insane,
Yeah.
which I think Chris is right now.
Yeah.
which might explain why Chris is so involved in this whole dimensional merge thing, and why Chris astral projects into these different cartoon dimensions, like hyperdimension Neptunia was
Yeah.
also very very big for
Yeah,
Chris.
you never want to assume someone's mental well-being, but you have to have great concern
Yeah.
when you see the stuff that Chris as of late was very involved with. And even though it seemed harmless, you do have to wonder why, what had to go wrong
Right.
for someone to believe this stuff.
Right. Well, obviously in the case with Chris, everything.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
and I remember there's also many points with the Sonic thing where Chris was demanding like getting responses or something from Sonic or something.
Were they?
Was there a point where they Chris was very angry because Chris thought that they included Chris in the show as like a gag?
Yeah, there was a. Chris actually did not think so, but everyone else thought so, because there was this character on the Sonic Boom TV show, which was a crazed Sonic fan, which looked a lot like classic Chris Chan, and trolls thought, or like observers of Chris thought it was Chris, but Chris denied it,
Right.
and but yeah, it's very similar.
Wow.
And I remember they would Chris would spam voice actors a lot of like My Little Pony and stuff, and
Right.
just demand
Yes.
them to. I don't remember what to do what.
Just weird demands, I
Yeah.
guess.
That-
Just on Twitter all the time.
Yeah, this was because Chris met them at the My Little Pony convention.
Monica Real, right?
Monica Real. That was a long time ago. That was
Right.
2004, actually,
wow.
before the internet thing really kicked off. But yeah, Chris was in contact on Twitter with these voice actresses because they showed compassion for Chris during their meetups at the MLP convention.
Right.
So-
Right.
so Chris-
Which I guess tipped Chris off
Chris-
the wrong
Chris
way.
could not
right?
let go, yeah.
Yeah. Jeez. Like I know I shouldn't be dumbfounded because this is a podcast. And we need to keep talking, but like I genuinely don't even know what to say anymore.
This has just been me like the past half hour.
yeah, right. Like,
Like,
I'm
I'm
trying to add on to the conversation. Anything
I just
can
don't
provide.
don't even know what I want to say. Like where'd you go from here?
I don't know.
Surely there must be many points where you're like, "Fuck, I can't do this. I can't keep documenting this shit." Like,
Like, has there ever been points where you've just legitimately gone like, nah,
Yeah, when I stopped making part 13 originally, I went on
Right,
a break
right.
for like about 9 months or so.
Right.
Then I came back with 2.1.
But I mean, like
Started again.
anything that Chris themselves actually did that made you go, I don't want to document this.
I mean, the closest thing was the recent event,
Right.
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
encouraged
yeah.
me to go on a break.
Right.
I was like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you were
Don't
saying
blame
that,
me.
that, man.
yeah, because you were saying that the court case was September, right?
September 16th was, I
Yeah,
believe.
so probably by the time this episode comes out, we might have new information
Right.
about it, right? At this point, but
I mean, at this point, I just want the story to end. Like, this
Mm.
story needs
Yeah.
to end.
I just hope the judge just never lets Chris have any internet connection. That's what I want.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I also worry the trolls will probably find a way to do something in
I
person.
mean, it seems like this has bled very clearly into real life. I mean, it obviously has with trolls showing up at Chris's house.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. It's like the line has been blurred so much that there is just no line anymore. Yeah,
It's just the Wild West, isn't it?
It's like now it just kind of seems like this is the shit you would expect to hear on the deep web or something.
Yeah.
But no, it's right here in front of us for a lot of people.
Scary.
It's some of the most disturbing things I've ever heard in my life, probably. Especially coming out of the internet. And yeah, like I just this story needs to end.
I thought I've heard a lot of fucked up stories from the internet, and then I'm hearing all this today, and I'm just like, Jesus,
yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
it's really not good.
You know, one thing that I have to wonder is quite difficult, as I've experienced something similar myself, is you know, when you're a creator who makes something, and often a certain type of video, is it difficult, you know, being stuck in the category of the guy who talks about Chris Chen? Is that something you struggle with?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the word you're looking for is pigeonholed.
Yeah, because you know,
yeah.
I had a similar thing when I started my YouTube career, where I was only doing a certain type of video on a certain type of anime, and it was like all I was known for.
Yeah.
And it was what everyone referred to me as, that guy who does X video.
At least your username isn't that, like me.
True, yeah. Joe's
yeah.
called the Anime Man.
So I'm kind of fucked if I don't make anime content.
He doesn't watch anime anymore.
No,
It's the biggest lie. On
Yeah,
the
the
internet.
biggest lie on YouTube.
it's the man now.
You know, is there any, you know, is there like a plan? Do you have something you want to try and branch out to?
Oh, yeah. Actually, my channel is called Geno Samuel 2.1 because it's actually originally my second channel. So my first channel is devoted to music, original and covers. So
Right,
that's what I've been doing a lot longer than the Christian stuff. As far as Japanese things go, I guess I'm most well known for doing a cover of Plastic Love, which kind of
Oh, you did?
Okay,
I
you
did. It got over 1 million views, so it's
Oh,
Oh,
shit.
wow.
Nice,
that's my other thing that I'm known for, I guess.
nice. So you know, for Plastic Love and Christian,
Yes.
two very different things.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
Also, there's the Geno Samuel 3, which is where I post documentaries that are not about Christian.
Right, you did one about yokai, right? Is that
I do a series about yokai, yeah.
Oh,
These
cool.
little shortish videos about yokai, and hope to branch out onto other topics.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
nice.
Would you like Japanese folklore and culture and stuff like that? Well, I assume you are because you're in Japan, right?
Mostly focus on yokai. Other docs will be about different topics.
Yes.
Wide
so
range. Yeah.
people are probably wondering, why are you in Japan? What brings you to Japan?
Well, I've been interested in Japanese culture for a very long time.
Right.
And I started teaching the language myself. Actually, when I was still in school, I was learning the writing systems and reading and writing myself. And then I got into a course in university, which allowed me to do a year abroad study in Tokyo or in Japan. I didn't know if I was going to Tokyo at that time, but yeah. So that allowed me to experience Japan, and then decided to come again and work as an English teacher.
Nice.
So yeah, that's where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Spent a year in Hokkaido, which was I don't know, man.
I mean, I'm
I love
jealous.
Hokkaido,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I've only been on like
it-
vacations there. so-
Exactly.
Right.
If you have to live there for a year in a very small town of 5,000 people, it's quite a different experience.
Which is the majority of towns in Hokkaido. Like
Exactly.
most of Hokkaido is pretty desolate.
So
Yeah.
you just couldn't talk to anyone, I assume, or very little.
Yeah, my Japanese skills are not that good, and everyone's English skills are also not that good. So, so I was kind of stuck in a rut. I was employed by the city hall or the town hall. So then I would provide English lessons to all the schools in the town, which is like 3 of them. So
Right.
the preschool, primary school, secondary school, or the junior high school. So yeah, everyone knew me. Everyone looked at me everywhere I went.
You're the gaijin.
I'm the gaijin, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you, at that point, you are just the token foreigner.
right.
The 5,000
Yeah.
sound people.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy teaching English?
I did, yeah. I eventually got used to it, and I enjoyed the fun of it. I
Got used to it. Sounds like an acquired taste.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was tough at the beginning, of course, and of course Hokkaido has some very gruesome winters.
Yep.
Actually, I almost died at one point, which was
What? What do you tell?
In the winter?
yeah. I was at school and we were caught by a blizzard, a very terrible blizzard, and we had to send all the kids home and all the staff home. I had to walk home. Of course, I didn't have a car.
Right.
Along the course of the walk, I got really cold, obviously, and there was snow getting in my boots, and my feet were freezing, which was not good. I could barely walk because of the wind and the snow. When I got to my house, I could not open the front door because it was frozen shut.
Oh my god.
Because the door frame was metal, so it just froze
Jesus.
together.
Oh my god.
So I decided to go back out and go to a convenience store to buy like an electrical lighter in a vain attempt to try and heat up the door and melt the ice. Along the way, I got really sleepy, and I thought,
Oh, no.
maybe I should take a rest. I really wanted to do that, but then
This sounds like hypothermia.
I mean,
Yeah.
that
It
is
is
literally
it is hypothermia,
Yeah.
right?
it is hypothermia, man. I thought I was gonna lose my feet, but yeah. I managed to struggle my way back home and pulled as hard as I could, because of course in Japan you have to pull the front door open, not push it in.
Push it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, which very difficult in that sense. But yeah, I actually managed to open it after a while and heat up. Crazy stuff.
Fuck. Did you have any
Jesus.
like lasting side effects from that? Like, were your feet okay?
I'm okay. Yeah.
Just like, your feet
He's
is
fine.
black.
Yeah.
I can't walk anymore.
I imagine I was very close, but
Yeah.
because I could not feel anything. There was
Yeah.
there was no
Fuck, man.
sensation of like touch at all.
You just wanted to teach English. You just wanted to live in
I just
Japan.
wanted to teach English, right?
Man wants to teach English, almost loses feet.
So how long have you been in Japan for?
On and off about 4 years. Spent a year as a study abroad student in Tokyo, and then 1 year in Hokkaido, 2 years in Tokyo as a English teacher for an after school thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
How much do you have to like speak Japanese in your class, or do you use it for your work at all?
Zero Japanese for us.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
It's an all English environment. Yeah.
Oh, so all the kids are speaking English.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Is it like a cram school kind of thing?
Not a cram school, kind of like a after school, almost like a daycare,
So
if you will.
So you never
Right.
get a chance to improve your Japanese.
Right. Yeah.
That's why people are always online when you talk about living in Japan, like, oh my god, you're not fluent in like 1 year. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't understand when you're here to do certain things, you
Yeah.
don't get the opportunities that
Right.
a normal person
Yeah.
would get living here.
I
You
mean,
have to go out the
even with
way.
our job as well, right? Like we're always talking with like English speaking staff and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, people overseas and stuff like that. So it's
Yeah.
very rarely that you have to actually talk to
Yeah.
Japanese
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
It sucks because you can't just, unfortunately, just absorb it via osmosis. You actually
Yeah.
have to get this, go out and put effort into learning.
yeah, you kind of have to learn it.
Yeah, it's a thing which
Yeah.
you do, which most of us hated in school.
Yeah.
As an adult, you have to choose to put time in it. Because like one thing that you don't really think about is how much time you have to put into actually learning an activity, and like you have to put time and effort into it. Whereas as an adult, I don't think it's any harder to learn a language. It's just harder to find time,
Right.
to commit to it.
Yeah.
And, like in the perfect world, I would want to take like a year off of my life just to like fully commit to learning Japanese. But I can't. I have a job and I have commitments.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And I think as an adult, that's just much more harder to do.
Yeah. So you've always been really creating on YouTube for quite a while, really, or
Yeah.
just creating in general.
Yeah. I'm a compulsive creator.
Right. So is there like a next step of what you want to achieve after you're done with this documentary?
Interesting that you say that, because I did actually come in contact with two producers involved with creating content for example, streaming services or even Hollywood, actually.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Concerning Christian, obviously.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so they see my work and of course they see dollar signs after this recent debacle.
God, yeah.
So, but yeah, so we're interested in maybe creating something. I'm not sure yet if it's possible, but yeah, either American network or Netflix, Amazon, maybe streaming. I don't know.
About Christian?
About Christian,
Damn.
Oh,
like a
fuck.
feature.
Well, honestly, it could be true crime is all the rage right now.
Obviously,
Yeah.
This is now a true crime
Yeah,
story,
honestly.
unfortunately.
This is like. This is a Netflix level story.
Yeah.
Bro,
I say like it's like an Avengers level threat. No, this is
making a murderer looks like a joke to this. This is like making a Christian.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Like
this
Black
is.
Mirror thought it was dark
Yeah.
until this story
We
happened.
could have a 5-season Netflix show about this.
Yeah,
and
honestly.
it wouldn't do
Yeah.
it justice. It's, oh my god,
Yeah.
that would be very cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be sick.
I'm just curious. How much longer do you think it would take to catch up
To catch up.
to the story?
Because you're at what, 2017?
2017, yes.
Right.
November 2017. Part 60 will go into 2018 finally.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe another 10 episodes.
To
Part
catch up?
70. Yeah, maybe.
This is like the anime adaptation catching up to the manga, right? It's just
Yeah, when it catches up to the manga, what happens? Do we delay the episodes? Or-
Stop.
yeah, what happens?
Damn.
Yeah.
It's it has to be. I don't even know how I would feel being in your shoes. I don't know. I'm sure on one hand I really want this to conclude.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, I'm like, oh god, what am I going to do after this?
Exactly, yeah.
I guess other than the movies or any other future plans that you have, or creating stuff or music. Or,
Do you want to be done with this?
yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Kind of. But if the opportunity arises, like for example, if I can get something done with Netflix, like I can get my name up there, this could be like a
A stepping stone.
stepping
Yeah.
stone,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Maybe.
exactly. I mean, I feel like now you must be the go-to guy for information about this.
As they say, I am the Christian guy.
The go-to historian.
I think you've been the only person who has been able to present it in a way that it doesn't make you feel like you're in some weird internet forum, kind of
Right.
like finding out about a guy who you shouldn't be looking at.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel that the videos very much present it, like we said, in an objective way that makes you not feel too bad for consuming it. Whereas I feel like if you're reading it online, you're like, this feels weird.
Yeah, like I shouldn't
I
be
don't
here
know
kind of
about
thing,
this.
right?
Yeah. Like, I don't know. This feels wrong. I'm fueling this, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wish you the best of luck. I really want to see what else you can do. I'd be interested to see what other documentaries you could pull off.
Yeah.
God knows that you've proven your dedication to your subject.
Yeah.
I think no one can question that.
Yeah.
You
When
know?
you go deep on a subject, you
Yeah.
go deep on a subject.
If someone's making a documentary about anything, I'm like, get Geno, man. Like,
Yeah.
that man has gone in hard.
Yeah.
Massive props to you, man. I have absolutely
Thanks.
massive respect for the sheer amount of work you've put into this, and I don't think I've put 1/10 the amount of effort into something in my life. So I mean,
Honestly.
congrats, I guess.
Thanks.
I'm gonna go and watch the rest. I promise.
You should.
I'm at
should.
like
Yeah.
episode 10 right now, and I've only got what, like 50 episodes to catch
Yeah.
up on. It's all right, I can do it. If I can
should-
catch up on One Piece, I can catch up on this.
Yeah, I was about to say, I caught up on One Piece. Like, I'm going to catch up to the rest of your videos
You should
now.
watch it. It is very compelling. It's very well done. Geno's done an amazing job. And of course, links in the description to all of Geno's channels.
Yes.
Check out his music as well. And
Yeah.
his third channel where he does documentaries and stories about yokai, right?
Mhm.
Damn. Do you want to plug yourself anymore? Anything else you do?
Yeah.
I'm good.
Well, there you go then.
Yeah, man. Geno, man, thank you so much for coming on. This
Yeah,
has
thanks
really
for
been a
having me on.
pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
And what was I going to say?
This is probably the most different episode of Trash Taste we've ever done.
It's been an enlightening episode.
Yeah, eye-opening to say the least.
This is probably the least tangents we've ever took in an episode.
Yeah, right. It's almost a themed episode in a
Yeah.
sense. But yeah.
I've just
It's definitely been an educational episode. I don't know if I wanted to be educated on a lot of this stuff, but now I am, apparently. But it has also been fascinating.
Yeah, super
And,
fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's probably been like the episode where I've found it the hardest to talk.
Yeah,
Because
right?
I just sometimes I'm just like, how do I even react to this stuff?
Yeah.
It's
Other than making a just dumbfounded face.
it's just gonna be like me making YouTuber reaction faces throughout like 2 hours of this. like the
we should get all the thumbnails from this.
It's just like the thumbnail face just looks like.
Yeah, just use me and Gaunt for thumbnail faces because we made so many this episode just from listening to these stories. It's absolutely insane.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the viewers before we end this? Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Christian story is very, very complicated, and it can serve as a lesson for many things in life. Serve as a lesson what not to do on the internet, how to behave in in-person relations as well, it can, well, basically see it and think for yourself, because that's what I really encourage with my series, is that you make your own decisions. I'm not going to tell you what you think.
Well,
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing such a good moral to this absolute shit fest of a story. I think
But let's thank the patrons as well.
Yeah,
before we forget.
Oh my God. Sorry, patrons, for
Yeah,
dragging you
sorry,
in this
patrons,
one.
that you have to have your name on this.
Yeah.
But hey, if you'd like to support the show, then make sure to go over to our Patreon, patreon.com/trashdays. Also, follow us on Twitter, send us your memes on the subreddit, and if you hate our face, listen to us on Spotify. And thank you, Geno, for coming along.
Yeah,
Thanks
you
for
very
having
much.
me.
Yeah.
All right. Bye. Check out Geno's channel.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.